Streaming. Okay, we're streaming and I'm pushing play on the music. So, looks like that's bringing us live. Welcome to Rx Only Picture Show number 56. If you're watching the rerun, bring it back. Thrice great.
I've started the timer.
And now I guess since we're on a timer, we better start promoting.
11-minute timer, you guys.
Oh man, I got it so they can see us. Oops. There, now we'll get
it's pretty cool that this is show 56.
Yeah,
because 56 is 11, right?
Wow, yeah, 5 and 6 is 11. That's great. Also, 6 is the number of the earth, and 5 is the number of the air.
Cool.
Oh no, 5 is the number of the air. 6, it's one. I just read that. Maybe I got it backwards. Of course, it depends on who you talk to. 10 minutes, 17 seconds, and counting.
10 minutes and 17 seconds and counting, and we will be live in your face.
What is up, Petty? Woohoo, back at you.
That's what I'm doing right now.
I think that's what I'm going to do, a little promotion while we let the Adam Lore music roll. Pretty exciting.
Oh, I was going to let you know, James, it's Rx Only Picture Show, and it don't feel bad if you don't get it perfect because everybody says it different. But it's like a prescription-only picture show.
And the prescriptions for entertainment and knowledge.
It is.
And fun. What's up? A drop of water salted with fire. Pretty interesting information. Isla Ren. It's Wednesday. Yay! What's going on, Krista? Glad everybody made it. Well, thanks for coming in, Drop of Water Salted with Fire. We're glad that you recently started watching the Rx Only Picture Show, and we're happy to have you here.
Yeah, we are excited to meet new people, find out new things.
We're usually here most Wednesdays, about the same time. Hit that subscribe button and you'll know when we're live. Oh yeah, and the bell too.
In my brain, the Mario Paint song comes on next.
6 minutes and 30 seconds to showtime.
Nice.
All right.
This is a great song. All the intro music's by my brother, Adam Lohr. He's a prolific songwriter, but even more prolific as a comic artist, so make sure you Google his name and check out some of his beautiful drawings. This is a song called Recent Placebo.
You can call me sir, or you can call me madam, or you can call me baby, but my real name is Adam.
I'm tagging people on Facebook. What are you doing?
I'm just commenting on the chat here. We always have so many smart folks. I like to call it the brain trust.
Yeah.
Definitely a loyal crew.
Smartest audience I've actually encountered. I've been on a lot of different shows.
We appreciate that, and I'm sure they do too.
Well, it's just true, really. I back before I was on the other side, I would just read the chat just because you just learn. Holy cow! I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Wow.
And you took each other's pants down,
Right.
but little did you know
We have been promoted on
that it was gonna burn your house
the faces.
down. Now you can call me sir, but you can't call me baby. I tried to tell you no, but you must have heard maybe.
We're live in 4 minutes, 20 seconds. That's weird, right?
Yeah.
That's a mystical number.
Did the Columbine shooting, Hitler's birthday, Grateful Dead making famous for snapping out.
It's
I flipped out when I was noticing 11s last week. I go to my notifications on Twitter, and someone says, "Yeah, there's something up with the number 11," and she posted that tweet 11 minutes ago. You know, and I was just like, "Damn, that's weird." Which brings you to 22, which is something I keep seeing personally, just in all my research. There's just so much that happens on that date.
Yeah. Numerologically, people think 22 is one of the most powerful numbers there is.
Is that right? Wow.
I say 23 a lot. There's not really a factor of 11 in that.
Yeah, there's a lot to. That's something I'm looking forward to us talking about, because this is really the gematria, the Gnostic inversion. You could talk about, like, how to split the psyche. We're 3 minutes until we're live.
3 minutes.
3 minute warning.
3 minute warning.
All types of toads are welcome.
Jim's song, in my opinion.
All varieties of
Song all about
frogs come in.
lizards and amphibians.
And all of the lizards,
Yeah, the study of reptiles and amphibians is called herpetology.
It is.
your family, bring your
Strange word.
reptiles and amphibians.
I made some bronze sculptures of frogs
The giant banquet
over the years.
and the crowds
Also some silver, right?
all are welcome.
Yeah, some silver too.
I want a silver frog.
All are welcome.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. A lot of work.
We have the 2 minute warning. 2 minute warning.
At the
The
two.
show is about to start.
All types of toads are welcome at our castle. All varieties of frogs come in. All the little newts and all of the lizards, reptiles and amphibians. All are welcome, please come in. Reptiles and amphibians.
saw a request there in the chat for a specific song, but I don't think we're gonna have time to play it, you guys. I don't know what's gonna
1
come
minute
on
to
next.
showtime. 1 minute, 6 seconds to showtime.
Right.
People are gonna get hooked on that. So whatever song this is gonna end up getting cut off. Be warned, we're already under a minute here.
45 seconds. 45 seconds to show.
Oh yeah, great song. We're gonna do a slow fade.
I could do that.
25 seconds to showtime.
How much?
22 seconds.
22 seconds.
22. Back of 11.
15 seconds.
So how am I gonna do this?
And the NASA spell begins. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Showtime.
Welcome to Picture Show 56 with our thrice returning guest James True, and of course I'm SB, and right here somewhere is Jim. Jim, where you
Howdy,
at?
folks.
There he is.
Hello.
And we did so well last week, and everything worked out smoothly that we thought, geez, we should just keep James True coming back and continue where we left off, because I'd say we didn't by any means complete whatever that work was last week. I'd say we left off in the middle of some exciting areas, and it looks like tonight we're going to be able to make an investigation of the number 11, how it might relate to the 9th of Av, and well, got a few other notes here, but I'm not going to give up the whole basket of eggs. James, how you doing?
I'm great. It's great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me back.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Yeah, it's been a crazy, intense week. So many things have happened, obviously, since we last spoke. It's almost hard to even think about where to begin, you know?
It
The 9th
is-
of Av, though, is sort of our main topic. And it's interesting that this year the 9th of Av falls on August 11th. That's a rotating calendar. So it comes at kind of crazy different times each year. And when I say crazy, I mean, I don't know. Like, I have to pull it up on the calendar. There's definitely a rhythm to it. I'm just admitting my ignorance here. But 11 days prior to the 9th of Av this year, which would be the 31st, is when I believe the first shooting started, and the Kennedy death. One of 11 children of Kennedy daughters who aged 22 went swimming in the dawn, stayed up all night. This is what the story said. She stayed up all night and she went for a morning dip as the sun was coming up, and went to bed and apparently overdosed or something. This is what they're saying, that the parents tried to revive her later on and she had passed away. She was the 5th of 11 daughters, again 22 years old, college student.
The 5th of
Looks pretty
11.
healthy. If you look at her Instagram stuff, does have a lot of abuse in her background. So she's definitely been trauma programmed too. And it's just weird that it was 11 days. It easily could be a coincidence, guys. But as you'll start to see, that there's just a lot interesting happening right now. And that this being 11 days prior to it, you can almost look at the Kennedy as almost a royal blood sacrifice. Like they're, and I only say that because the 9th of Av itself is a pretty bad day historically. A lot of bad things happen on that day. I believe both world wars started on the 9th of Av. Again, it's not going to be August 11th, you know, it'll change depending on the year. And then both Jewish temples were destroyed. The Jews tried to invade Palestine, but they decided it was too hard and they gave up. That was considered a big failure.
Because I've
Couple
got
other
it
things.
pulled up here. Let me just in case people don't know, because I'd heard of it, but I really didn't know much about the 9th of Av. I'm going to read a little bit of the wiki so people, just in case they're not with us on this. Tisha B'Av, aka the 9th of Av, is an annual fast day in in Judaism, on which a number of disasters in Jewish history occurred, primarily the destruction of both Solomon's temples by the Neo-Babylonian Empire and the Second Temple by the Roman Empire in Jerusalem. 9th of Av is regarded as the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, and it is thus believed to be a day which is destined for tragedy. It says it falls in July or August in the Gregorian calendar. And there's more details than that, but just so folks know that, I'll show you guys another little thing here. Let's see. This is a thing I bought off the internet that's interesting to look at, the 2019 occult calendar. So sometimes if things seem weird, like there's a lot of hoodoo and weird stuff going on, you can glance in there and see if they line up with any feast days. And let's see, what's today's date? Someone remind me?
7th. August 7th.
So let's see. Nah, nothing for the 7th. And then you said that it's going to be the 11th?
Yep.
This year? Yeah, it's not in here for that either. The closest thing would be the Feast of Jupiter on the 13th. So, oh wait, no, that was September. That's all right. We'll give up on this thing. Sometimes it does, though. Sometimes you look at like things are weird. What's going on? And you pop it open, and here's some suspicious-looking holidays to go along with whatever's weird going on. And I look at all super high-profile deaths, especially ones directly related to really famous bloodlines. Not necessarily as that was probably a sacrifice or that is, but at least you have to bring it into consideration in my mind. It makes me think of your article about the I forgot their name now.
The Vanderbilts?
Yeah, the Vanderbilts. That article, I've gone back to it a few times, and I see it gets passed around sometimes because I think you're onto something there. That those strange murals or that strange art that Gloria Vanderbilt was making, and the correlation you make to her own children, and all that is a trip.
Well, also the Crowley fire.
Yeah.
Today. And it's also a dark moon, black moon this month. So that's 2 new moons. There's a couple different things that give you a black moon, and in August it's the peak of 2 new moons. So right now we're waxing, so it's a time to alchemically build something to make something happen. And it's interesting that Crowley thing happened. In fact, Thomas Sheridan has been pointing out that there should be some Nessie sightings. He said that that's probably going to happen, and the very next day he posted a Nessie sighting. Someone had made a Nessie sighting.
Yeah. I was actually over there. We were over there a few years ago, and we rode the whole tour and looked for Nessie, and so that made me think like, well, I think you reshared my tweet. I shared your tweet and compared it to the Notre Dame burning, like we've got dark and light, we've got both pillars. Now you got Notre Dame would represent the pillar of kindness. I can't think of the right word. It's not kindness.
Mercy.
Yeah,
right?
mercy. And then obviously Crowley's magical house would likely represent the dark pillar and the pillar of severity. And that's just me speculating, but that's what it popped into my head. I called it Notre Don't.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Yeah, that whole everything's just freaking weird, and it's really hard to it takes a lot of calories to accept how weird it is and move forward, and just keep maintaining your perception as clearly as you can, even though it's this weird. And that's why I prelude that when I'm talking about this Kennedy sacrifice, because it's like, it's not like I'm going around all the time like, oh my goodness, that bird just turned right, and now I'm going to have to, go buy a goldfish. When you look at these big days like this, because of the Kabbalistic nature of Jared Kushner, I think we covered that pretty thoroughly last time with the 666 purchase and the Vanderbilt, and that was a Vanderbilt property, by the way.
Oh,
that
okay,
passed
that
through
makes
Rockefellers.
sense.
So it really has touched every single person to get to Kushner. And to see that, Donald Trump on page 188 of his book mentioned his Kabbalistic teacher, these people, this is important to them. these states are important. And the magical characteristics of, so first of all, it's messed up because they're the ones that are making the coincidences. So, let's just define gematria, even though I'm sure everyone here knows what it is. But in a way, gematria is sort of like the science of coincidences, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because if you can find a corner of the fractal of coincidences where certain things are going to happen, if you can find that pattern, then you know that other people are going to be able to find that same pattern. So it's almost like a natural eddy, in the river of the pranic river of the psychic world. And so because you know where those eddies are, just by the nature of the Fibonacci, well, like just as an example, let's say that as you go around the sunflower, I'm making this up right now, but let's say the 72nd node is always going to be south, for example, just because of the way it unfolds.
Right.
Like that would be a piece of esoteric knowledge that you could gather around and leave signposts for each other. But what's screwed up about the Kushners is that these guys aren't following nature. They're anointing their own. They anointed Kushner. It wasn't like nature did that naturally. It wasn't like they waited and they found a kid that had like 6 freckles on his forehead, that formed this perfect thing. Instead, they're like, no, this is our guy.
Right.
Let's start trauma programming him at a young age, giving him the golden child treatment so that, he's going to be our slave basically the rest of our lives. So they're the ones that are manipulating the nature to make it look that way. And that's really what makes it so psychotic, because it's cannibalizing the universe. It's telling the universe what the numbers should be. It's forcing the sunflower.
Yeah, this is the problem with it, is that it's a will to power and do as thou wilt attitude, which it's not really the natural way that people approach things. If we were coming into the world, say we just woke up and we had amnesia, we wouldn't immediately assume that means we're supposed to assert ourselves to the maximum and take full advantage of every opportunity, even forcing opportunities out ahead of ourselves. That's just not to me that's something, it's a super psychotic and sociopathic learned behavior to start to have this presumption that you're going to take the world by the reins and you're going to drive it on to where you want it to go. I'd say we're born naturally not to do that. Kushner, like you said, our black tie racehorse had to really work hard to be trained by his whole life to take that attitude to where you're thinking, I think I'm gonna spend some billions. I'm gonna get me a 666 down in Manhattan, and we'll see where we go from there. That's not. I'd say that ties directly into what you keep talking about too, James, the idea that pride is a good thing. So in a way those go together, like it's pride maligned. Like, so there's one way to get rid of your pride to make you ashamed of everything, and then there's another way to screw up your pride by to overinflate and misdirect it too. So I'd say those.
Yeah, well imagine, what if Jared Kushner is the world's most talented maestro of juggling? Like literally, what if he's the Mozart of juggling? Like what if he has this universal God-given talent that really just would change the future of juggling that's ever been and will be? We're never going to know that. We don't understand who Jared Kushner was supposed to be genetically. What we know is what a bunch of psychopaths did to him from a very young age. And we're not even really willing to process it as torture. I mean, the dude is married to Ivanka Trump. He's got all the money in the world. Everybody in the world tells him he's the Moshiach, he's the Messiah. So it's hard for people to process, well, why is that torture? But what if he's this juggler? What if he's this amazing talent? What you don't know. He doesn't know. His life is a vessel. He's an empty shell. And that's how you make a psychopath. And more importantly, that's how you become possessed. Because if you have an empty shell in you, a spirit's going to head to that vortex. It's going to occupy that. Once you can pull once they can pull your pearl out of your shell, the machine can buzz in its place. That's the welcome to the machine. So all these people, by fulfilling their duties that were set by their previous, genetics, they're all screwed. They've all been kidnapped from their own life. They've all been abandoned to this role of elite status. Hence Gloria Vanderbilt. Hence how crazy she was. How, when you look at her art, there's not an 8-inch patch of solid color anywhere in her house. I'm talking about her ceilings, her walls, her
I've
floors,
seen the pictures. Yeah.
her clothing, and that's what happens when you have this is really, really interesting, because Michael Aquino wrote this book, Mind War. I just finished it.
Oh, you read the whole thing? Interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm kind of curious. Because it's kind of terrifying.
What's interesting is that so 5% of your brain, and this is something I talk about in my book, Blueprints of Mind Control, is that's why this really isn't thought control. We're talking about chemical control here. But Aquino explains it. He calls it algorithmic thinking. 5% of your brain is going to be just processing algorithms. 95% of it is pattern thinking. Okay, so the brain's going to have 4 states. Alpha wave, beta, gamma, theta. And all of these states, one's going to put you in an anger, agitated state. One's going to make you more agreeable, calm. One's going to make you more creative. So the idea of the Mind War book is more about pattern thinking control. If you can induce a state of alpha, then you're going to have a better luck of 2 people getting along. If you're going to induce a state of, say theta, then you're going to have a much more creative situation happening. I hope I'm saying those states right. I'm actually going to scroll down here to make sure that I'm telling you guys the right thing, as far as like which state does that. But it's interesting because it ties back into the mind control portion of this. Gloria Vanderbilt.
So is the book's not fiction then? It's not a fictional narrative. It's an outline of.
It's so boring. It's like you snuck into an army base, and you opened up a random file cabinet, and you pulled out a bunch of papers and you started reading. Like it's
just completely dry.
It's so freaking dry.
And,
yeah.
For people that don't know, Michael Aquino is worth looking up. He's a very well-known military guy, but behind the scenes, he's totally into the whole OTO type black magic scene. Mm-hmm. So, and you'll find
Temple of Set guy.
Temple of Set, right? So, and all these guys, the more you dig into the high-up military intelligence and NASA especially, these guys all overlap in the background into black magic occultism. Just in case we got a brand new person this week that hasn't been following, that's why James would immediately pop in with the Michael Aquino book. And I saw you were comparing it to Q, so I'm curious to hear you say more about it if you want.
Well, so let me first just touch on Vanderbilt, because it'll jump us over there. Gloria couldn't look at a solid field of color. That solid field of color is a place where your mind can rest, where you're able to just be. You're able to reflect on yourself. And this is what I mean by splintered. I write a lot about how you splinter a personality. She was constantly splintered, which is how she ended up feeling better. That's why all of her art is all of those weird menageries, the dolls, her paintings, her fashion, her wallpaper. It was all about splintering. It was all about, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not totally red, I'm just a little red, I'm just a little yellow, I'm just a little green, I'm just a little blue. It's this, if you think about it, it's almost like a possession of color, a possession of state, where because everything is so intricate and crazy, your eye's just constantly able to move around. You don't have a choice. Your eye's going to be jumping all around. And that jumping is a rhythm that puts your brain into something that she finds comfortable. In a way, you can imagine, sort of like walking on hot coals, or more like tacks or Legos. You're constantly going to be jumping up and down. Nothing's going to be comfortable, and this ties into Aquino because he was talking about this mechanical sensory perceptions of the world, that 95% of what you perceive is just going to be a sensory equilibrium task. And that's why when you enter into a mind war with several people, you might say introduce the color of red to your opponent, okay, if you wanted to agitate him. So you could have a waiting room that has a totally red decor, right? That's going to stimulate a pattern of agitation. And here's where it gets interesting, because the mind in the background is resolving that pattern all the time, but it's going to be resolving it based on what kind of brainwaves you're throwing out. Because there's free will exists, right? This is not about if you put someone in a red room, they're going to get agitated. No, this is a much more complex science. This is if you put someone with free will into a red room, what is their, and free will's kind of used loosely here, but what does their brainwave want to do? So if you're in an alpha brainwave state, you're going to be more happy, more willing to get along, right? Now that means you're more malleable, okay? So if you're put into a red room and you're in an alpha state, can you see how that would make you more malleable to being maybe aggressive, maybe energetic? It's because you're in that alpha state, right? And then you're introduced into this different color. So like green is very agreeable. That's a very agreeable color. But in beta, you're going to be in a very nervous confrontational mode, which is interesting because if you want to set the chemistry, if you put someone in beta inside of a green room, you're creating a pattern where they're in an agreeable atmosphere, but they're putting out brainwaves where no, they're actually confrontational. So the green ends up working in a different way based on the pattern they have. So to zip it all up, basically, Aquino is saying, here's how the mind works. 5% of it's this reason, this algorithm crap. 5% is what 99% of our effort, we pretend this is how you have to convince someone. You have to give them facts. You have to dispute their facts. You have to provide them with all the evidence. It's that pretend science that we pretend like we're all doing on the surface. But what's actually happening underneath is this 95% is this pattern emolment. I need to think of the right word there, but it's learning how to resolve your own brain state with the pattern that you're in. And obviously, the three of us are all putting out our own pattern, and that's going to affect, the entire dynamic. It really does kind of showcase this prana economy I talk about, because again, all of us are going to come in with our different brain states. I might be beta right now, but tomorrow I might be alpha, or in 10 minutes I might be alpha,
right.
And that's going to change the whole dynamic. So that's really what communication is all about. If you think about it, we're just getting lost in all the words. Underneath it is this deeper kind of economy coming out. So,
and I was just throwing some of her art in some of the rooms up on the. Now this room that I just found is a true blue example of what you were talking about. I don't know if it's popped over there. Do you have a way to see? I wish that we could share screen easier, but the Zoom just doesn't really account for it. But it's like the floor.
Yeah, I see it now.
Yeah, the floor almost looks like
a
polished. The floor looks like a quilt, but it looks all polished and like there. I popped a few of these up and some photography of her and some photography of her art, and so I'd say that. So I figure she's doing this not fully conscious of what she's doing to herself and everyone else, right?
Yeah, totally.
This is just an outward projection of her completely shattered psyche, so that this is the way that she can feel comfortable. Make it super OCD organized, but absolutely eclectic to the max. Mm-hmm. And so you're comparing that to Aquino, the 5% of your brain is just trying to take this in and make it logical. And
Yeah, if you were in this room, I would guarantee that most normal people would feel uncomfortable pretty soon. And they may not even know. They may not even understand what's happening, you know. They may just decide, oh, I'm in a sour mood or something.
right.
But when Gloria's in this room, I guarantee you this makes her feel better. This agitation is satisfying to her. It's become her main transmission. The gear, you know, the gear that she set.
Right.
She loves third gear, you know. That's just her favorite gear. And it's only going to get worse as you grow, because you maintain that state all the time. So you're building the pathways that are going to burn the least calories to resolve. And that's naturally what that state is. You could think about our state as, what's your favorite state? Your favorite state's not the one that brings you the most happiness. Your favorite state is the one that burns the least amount of calories.
Right. Comfort. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, people think that like the natural thing for people to do is to protect themselves or something. And that's not really true. What's natural is to remain comfortable, even if what you're comfortable with is not necessarily good or healthy. The natural state to fall into. And that's definitely how I see the whole example of what we just looked at, is that her comfort zone is, for most people, just it's an OCD / chaotic hell. You know, I wouldn't want to, I would probably be like trying to get out the door of this mansion, wherever they are, with these types of rooms and settings. Like, I can kick it for a minute, but I got to get someplace where there's casual uniformity. Even if it's a little sloppy and messy, it's better than that super tight eclecticism, because it's going to aggravate me. I'm not going to be comfortable at all with that. You know?
Yeah. Well, right outside our door is Central Park, and maybe 200 yards away is the Cleopatra's Needle, the obelisk from Egypt that her grandfather, I think, brought in. Had brought in from, came by boat, had to build a special boat for it. The boat almost sank. Like 2 guys died bringing it in. It was one set up in London, one set up in New York, and the other one, if you call the third one part of it, it was set up in Paris. Lots of weird stuff with that family. Like, in fact, one guy, Aaron and I were talking on Twitter, and he had said, he had shown, well, here's these families, according to Springmeyer, and and I just commented, it's weird that Vanderbilt isn't in there, because I don't really know who the families are and exactly how that all works exactly. But it got me thinking about, what if they're titles? That would make a lot of sense. That if Vanderbilt's a title, that would really, like, it would just make sense to me that there still could be this other family, but they take on the name of something, sort of like, I'm the Duke of Usher.
We don't we'd have to do like a long intensive study to try and understand even where the name Vanderbilt came from, let alone what it means. And we know that what the example you're using does happen. People do it. The Queen of England, Windsor, is not her name. It's like she's of German lineage. That some people call her a pretender to the throne and all that, because it's like Fox Coburg. That's not right, but it's close. It's a German royal lineage that she's from, but they just put the Windsor title on her so that it sits okay. So there's very much the possibility. So really, in a way, that's just a title. That's not her actual name. There's few of us out here, even on the internet, I think, that are bold enough to really just use our names. I mean, my name is really SB Alger, and I'm pretty sure you're really James True, but that's rare.
Yeah.
Most people have a stage name, or they have at least some small amount of anonymity, and I think it's for that reason, because we inherently want to be safe.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of, it's weird, because that's what happens in disassociation. You lose yourself. You come to Hollywood, you shed your name. That's your first sacrifice.
Right.
You want to be an actor, you're going to shed your name. So that's that is the pry bar going into your oyster shell to pop you open and pull your pearl out, and then you can take over the possession. So these elite titles come with these disassociation ceremonies, these rituals that are built into them. And so it looks like, oh, well, that's something really rich. That sounds great because rich people do it. And it's actually kind of the exact opposite. You know, you're really losing yourself is what you're doing. You're turning into a golden child, and that's a terrible existence. You know, it's hard to say which one's worse, that one versus the scapegoat. Really, both of them are self-abandonment. Both of them are splitting the personality between two towers. This is kind of what the theme of this show is about. It's, if you look back, guys, all we're going to find is two towers. Every time we look back, we're going to see two towers, and these two towers are going to be mercy and
severity.
Severity. Thank you. And those set two different rhythms. And when you have dissonance like that, you're creating an atmosphere that's going to split someone open, to turn them into a vibrating whole. Basically, that's what most of us are that wander this planet. We're empty. That's why we eat 3 times a day. We've been programmed to have a vacuum in our hole. You can't even go into a mall. By the time you get from one side of the food court to the other, a song's telling you how there's no way you can live without Linda, this girl on whatever the song is, and that without codependency, love is codependent. Love is the emptiness that you find inside yourself. These things are very important to setting up that rhythm, the dissonance between the two. And these two towers, it's the same spell. It's the same spell used over and over and over again. World War I was the first tower. World War II was the second tower. Christianity and Islam, those are towers. One's mercy and one's severity. Communism, capitalism, these are two towers. They're different on purpose. It's establishing the same kind of dissonance. These two towers are the same as golden child, scapegoat, right? You're putting two different vibrations in. One seems a lot better from the other side, and the other seems a lot better from that side.
Right. It's the
That's what
polarization.
creates
Exactly.
the polarity, which splits the egg. The red versus the blue, the Democrat versus the Republican. All of these elements are aligned to cause the disassociation. This is why the movie star is heralded. They're the golden child. And then everyone that they talk about is racist, sexist, and about to shoot someone and can't be trusted with a gun. So they're taking all the population and they're putting them in the scapegoat. And then they're taking the elite few that we think are elite, but they're actually slaves too, and they're calling them the golden children. This is why we have these ceremonies. It's actually not, this isn't about the narcissism. These award shows are very important for the programming because they have to show the rest of the population that, no, you don't get a trophy. You're racist, you're bad, you're blue collar, right? It's the same thing, blue collar, white collar. These are two towers. Officer, enlisted, these are two towers. This is how you cause that disassociation to happen. This is like that beautiful meme you posted where the guy is hanging out in the field and he sees two sticks sticking out of the ground and he starts digging and he's digging and he reveals a ladder. He's found a ladder that's buried in the ground.
Yeah, I saw that and tagged you on that one, definitely.
And now he's down in the pit. He's been shamed to say you need salvation. He's created the system where he needs salvation. And now the ladder that originally got him there, it can be used as his savior to bring him back. And if he's lucky, he'll end up back in top, which is originally where he started out to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a constant taking away, like if you can imagine the actor that goes to Hollywood. Yeah, well, we're going to take your name away. Why? So you can be somebody. Do you see it? They're taking away something that already belongs to you and they're creating the ascension program where they'll give it back to you. And if you look at the Bible, the two towers are there too, guys. The Old Testament is the first tower. It's mean, it's angry, it's vengeful. And then you've got the second tower. And it's completely the opposite. And you have to understand that when you start to look at these two towers like this, it's going to cause a disassociation. If you've been brought up your entire life to think, this is the book, this is an infallible book of God, you're going to be spending your time going, does God hate me? Does he love me? How does this work? On one side is this, on the other side is this. And then the whole time it's promising you, hey man, I will give you a ladder. All you have to do is get down that pit. And once you get down that pit, I will promise you that you will have this ladder. And you're not going to get it until you die. But if you just go down there now and get in that pit, you have the ability to ascend because of my grace, because of me being nice to you. I know this is a really dangerous topic. But
no, I've been watching you catching hell about it on Twitter because, and I'm a Christian. But I still have an open mind, and I don't consider the Bible alone to be the so many people are stuck on that idea that you can't be critical of the Holy Bible itself, but I would say it's still worth trying to look at it and address it, because if something makes you uncomfortable, uncertain, or doubtful, then that's your opportunity to explore, Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I never have been able to find a way to fall out of love with the man Jesus Christ, like the life of Jesus Christ, the red letters in the Bible, the example he sets. I can't find fault with it. I love it. That's still my example that I lead my life after. But everything else is, to me, very much up for debate, because the only way you're gonna either validate it or make it so that you can undermine it is by giving full reign to the chance to explore it. But I was been watching you get torn up on, and you start talking. It seems like you rolled two really tricky subjects within the last 3 weeks. Between calling QAnon being affiliated with Mossad in Israel, and then rolling right into talking about the Bible. It's like you kind of put a target on your back, but I think you're doing that on purpose, because you're willing to. That's why we keep wanting to bring you back, man, because you're willing to. You're not glad-handing people. You're not just here like, well, let's talk about the same thing, only from a slightly different perspective. That's not going to get us anywhere.
These are the subjects that I'm telling you. I'm sure that this doesn't work all the time, but if I find the topic that has the most taboo around it, I always find the most mind control. And it's been very difficult for me to tell myself and to tell God, because I've talked to him about this. Hey God, I'm about to write this article. here's what I'm thinking, and here's what I'm seeing in the Bible, and here's there's a lot of mind control here, and here's why it was done, and here's how it's built. And as I'm talking to God about that, that's the part that feels good. It's only when I go out into Twitter that I get the demiurge, whatever you want to call it, where you're getting a lot of really ugly pushback from that. And this is I understand it though, because we draw power from these archetypes, and the last thing I want to do is to take someone's power away. What's happening though is that as I am deconstructing the pit that I chose to climb down into, just as becoming a normal member of society, you adopt ideas, you start to believe things that maybe aren't even true. You're actually descending into the cave. You're going down into Plato's cave, and you're not watching their show now. And so as I've been climbing out, it's supposed to get harder, because they're trying to keep you in. They need that energy from you. So the harder it gets, the more calories it's going to require. That's the only, you actually know that means you're making progress. It's weird, but it's I'm telling you, when it comes right down to it, I think that this is hard to explain, holding the capacity of what I believe is true requires so much focus, like throughout my day. It's physically hard to do. And I'm talking now about, I'm a pure zeteticist, so I don't see a curved earth because I haven't seen that yet. So I'm out there in here's flat earth, which is so hard to hold because it's just, here's a piece of mail with a globe on it. Here's this, here's this in the grocery store, here's Planet Hollywood, here's, it's just everywhere. So
James,
that's already hard enough.
It took me a little while to be able to appreciate science fiction again. Because I don't know if I ever told you the story, but me and my good friend actually figured out that the Earth was flat. Gosh, it's got to be more than 10 years ago now, right? And I forgot. I completely forgot. And then I saw a comment on Reddit about satellites being fake. And I'm like, oh, come on, people. And so I started searching, and I remembered, like, oh, yeah, I used to believe the Earth was flat. What happened? And I dove back into it, and then I wrote a song about it, and I've been, I haven't completely laid off of researching it, but for a while, as we do, I dove full back into it. And as you know, I really think the Earth is more likely a square, flat plane than it is a circle, like I really do. From the evidence I've seen, it looks like there was probably more than one sun and moon, and the Earth is likely square, or at least rectangular. But it took me a while to get back to a comfort zone where I could be like, all right, I can still sit and watch Star Wars and not be vindictive and angry. Like every time because you get your mail and it has a globe on it.
Yeah.
And you see little kids and their backpack has a globe on it. And so you start to have this knee-jerk reaction of, oh, to hell with you people and your damn brainwashing. But if you bust through that, you get to a place again where I wouldn't say that you're stable, because the input is always still coming, just like we're always subject to advertising and other things, Like you don't really get a rest. The whole world now is kind of like Gloria Vanderbilt's living room, that you're always being abraded with this stuff. But you can't get to the point where you say, okay, I'm not going to knee-jerk react to that. I see it. I don't necessarily like it, or it gives me more confusion, but it's okay, I can sit and watch a science fiction movie. I can even listen to or read a book about space and flying from planet to planet, and I don't have to be vindictive the whole time and be like, oh, I hate this now, And I encourage everyone to do that, find that process in whatever is giving you knee-jerk reactions. I encourage everyone that I talk to, like, get past that point where you can sit with it for a second, Don't just answer your phone just because it rang. Look at the phone, give yourself 10 seconds to think, all right, well, I can answer it. I feel like that's a good allegory for all of life,
That's a great way of putting it, for sure. It reminds me of that who you going to tell thing, where like the sheriff badges that have these pedophile symbols on them,
right?
Whether intentional or not, it's the same kind of thing where it's like, imagine how hard that would be to see that all around. And know that you're a slave and you're in this system and it's controlled by everybody. It takes you to such a dark place that it's really hard to imagine how you have a life out of that, how you make a life out of that, knowing that, seeing this stuff all around. It comes back to prana though. You gotta detect your leaks. It's all about leaking. I pay attention to my leaks now. If I'm walking down the road and I see something and it triggers something that I did a long time ago and I was ashamed of it, you feel it. You're like, why did I do that? Now that happened like 6 years ago, right? But here I am, and I just chemically felt it again. It's a very important energy. What's happening? That's that's a leak in your prana. It's like you're carrying all these coins and 25% of them just fell, just spilled out.
Yeah.
You can't get them back. And this is why we have to work on ourselves. This is why it's all about the personal alchemy, because the stronger you can make your vessel through good living, I think, through, you want to be able to be around everyone in the world and not feel like, oh, I really wronged that person, and if you can do that, then you're going to have this vessel that's really hardy and strong. Versus if you're going around playing this, ego flogging game that we reward each other for now. Instead, that's where you're constantly draining out your system as quickly as possible and hoping someone gives you a little reward for it, a little Scooby snack, for, yes, you shamed yourself just right. That's great. That's a whole different feeding paradigm. That's a whole other economy. So
yeah, we want to stay on the other side, exactly. Like that.
But it's going to get even harder, man. It's going to get.
Oh yeah, that's the nature of the beast, man. That's the story they've been telling us, whether you believe it's brainwashing or not. The idea that we're in a funnel that draws closer and closer to the day that you have to choose between food, comfort, and safety and the system. The reason that allegory exists is not one faceted, it's many faceted, and we see some process of it constantly increasing. I personally think it's more in here. People always want to look out and say, oh, I see it getting worse. Now they're going to tag and bag us. They want to chip us, or now they're going to follow us around with drones. But to me, it's in here. What you're talking about, to recognize your internal leak. Because I have the same thing. I put myself through rigorous training. Someone taught me, and then I religiously practiced how to kill that reaction you were talking about of having someone's torturous brain or voice in my brain, like I see an image, a picture, a reminder, and now I'm having like a PTSD style flashback of being in a situation that I didn't like, that ruined me, That's how I saw it, and to retrain yourself to change that into something first that's survivable, and then something that's okay, where you can completely rearrange it to where, okay, now you can hit me with it and it doesn't matter, because I've trained myself to A, not react, and then B, how to change my reaction from negative into something that helps me grow, transmutation into something good, And I feel like that's the real secret behind all of it, not to look out into the world and say, oh crap, it's getting worse all the time, and take all that external input and try to protect yourself from it. You need to take it all, first stop your prana from leaking out, and then be able to transmute what they're throwing at you, at least to neutral, if not to where you're drawing that energy in, But it's not easy. It's hard. It's hard.
Well, it's getting... Donald Trump's last speech, like, this is just a perfect example of it. It's getting really hard, at least for me. It's getting...
I only saw some couple comments on it. I know that he essentially, from what I saw on Twitter and other little clips, I didn't watch it, was like, he's kind of pandering to the idea that we need some system of checks and balances. He didn't say, hey, let's grab the guns. But he said, hey, let's put a red flag on everybody just in case, right? That's kind of what I got from it,
Well, I pulled some quotes out. I can read them just because I think they're really telling about what's going on. And it also really accents this idea that this hit me, all these shooters have been aligned to white nationalism. And white nationalism is last year's racism. It's going to be the label that we're throwing out. But what is this is really kind of scary, because what is a white nationalist but another name for a Nazi? I mean, that's how we're treating it, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So we're calling everyone a Nazi. Meanwhile, 28 states, you can't boycott Israel. You can boycott Chick-fil-A right now, but you can't boycott Israel. In 28 states, it's a felony to do that. And in Florida, there is no First Amendment. You are not allowed to say Jewish world conspiracy. You are not allowed to invite a survivor of the USS Liberty on campus and tell your story. And if you think about those two things and then relate it to Nazi, I really see a dangerous pattern here, guys. But because what I see happening is that we need anti-Semitism to be installed in the country as a nationwide effort to stifle the internet. And the first quote I'm going to read to you here by Donald Trump, I think really accents that. He says, "The internet has provided a dangerous avenue to radicalize disturbed minds and perform demented acts. We must shine a light on the dark recesses of the internet and stop mass murders before they start." He goes on to say, "The internet is used for human trafficking, illegal drug distribution, and so many other heinous crimes. The perils of the internet and social media cannot be ignored and will not be ignored." He is focusing in directly on the internet in a bipartisan way because they're going to come back with a deal. In fact, he even said, I think we need to compromise on immigration, which means that's his excuse to tell his base, hey guys, I'm going to get you that wall I promised, but it's going to cost you a little bit of free speech. This is going to be a pretend deal that he's making. That's why when he says things like rising horror and dread as one mass shooting has followed another over and over, decade after decade, we cannot allow ourselves to feel powerless. We can and will stop this evil contagion. He's bringing it up in your mind again. He's telling you, hey guys, don't forget, here's all the programs we've done. He says the monster in the Parkland High School in Florida had many red flags against him. Then he goes on to say gruesome and grisly video games are commonplace. And then the killer is cultural change is hard. He's telling us that it's culture's fault. He's telling us that it's the internet's fault. He's telling the kids that the reason why he's going to have to punish them is because they're the ones that are being disruptive. He's setting the scene for something that's already happening around us, but most of us are living in denial about. The scariest part of all this is the last one, is he says, we must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals who may commit acts of violence. He said may, and when necessary, involuntary confinement. This guy has opened the doors for AI predictive behavior to determine when someone may do something. And when necessary,
thought crime. What was that
invoke
movie?
Involuntary confinement. Yeah,
exactly.
And if you add this on to the 28 states I just mentioned and to the Florida thing, and let's remember that the shooting in April, there was a synagogue shooting in California. There was an alleged synagogue shooting in Florida.
Yeah, I wanted to say
California.
that because I see the chat blowing up a little bit, or at least some comments. I want people to understand that we are fully open-minded on what could or could not have happened. We're not claiming anything is necessarily true or real, whether it's a false flag, it's a hoax, it's all AI
well,
generated.
they're right to call me out on it because I should have said alleged shooting. I should have said alleged shooting because these are alleged. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't there, like you said.
Mistake.
If it's going to be if we're taking a zetetic approach, we really don't have any idea what happened because we weren't there. You know, if we were there,
so if that's correcting me, thank you, because you're right. It's actually wrong. I'm distributing propaganda by repeating it that way. The alleged shooting that took place in California that allegedly led to one death, that was days before Florida. You know, it'll take us 3 months to pass a law to fix, CPS, but if someone gets shot in California, Florida 2 days later will unanimously pass an anti-Semitism law saying that you can't criticize Israel on a campus, like on a freaking campus. And no one is, when I say no one, there's so few people are noticing what's happening to us right now. It's really hard to maintain that state that everything is copacetic, and I just have to work on me because all around us, it's becoming really, really difficult to be honest with ourselves. We now have this thought police happening. It's already happening right now. Even today, someone made a real weird comment, and it sounded like he was suggesting that I was suggesting that something should happen bad. And I was just like, no, how dare you insinuate that? And immediately in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to get me flagged. Someone's going to come see me tomorrow. Yeah. Like, it's already working. This doesn't require a law. All this can be invoked with speech. This is really all it takes. This is a vibration that's been sunk in like a worm.
It is. They've been planning it for a long time, James. And I try to remind people that if you don't know the difference between government and governance, that's what you're seeing with us all worrying about whether or not what you just said is going to get my channel flagged. or whether or not what you said on Twitter is going to get your account knocked down, or maybe me being affiliated with you is going to get my account knocked down. And if we take it to the next level, then maybe it's going to be people calling us on the telephone. The black vans are going to show up. Maybe we're not arrested, but we're going to have a talking to, right? Or we get an email, or worse yet, Jim hits me up tomorrow and he's like, dude, what you said with James last night's not good, man. I'm going to have to step away from you altogether, right? This is governance. They want us policing one another. And if you look at history, it's always been that governance is kind of a newer word, or they've brought it out as a popular word more recently. But if you go look at history, they always have this spying on each other facet to this type of escalation of an empire towards its dismantling, you know. And I think that probably is true, that they're in the process of at least taking a real close look at how to. They may not fully dismantle the United States of America, but they're certainly getting ready to rearrange it pretty severely so that us folks that think of it a certain way won't really recognize it anymore in another 10 years or something, you know. So,
just like Donald Trump said, cultural change is hard.
Yeah, that's a scary quote, man.
It is. It really is. And when you've got groups that are working together finally to draft something that's happened over and over again, you're in trouble. And when you've got your infantry, the QAnon folks, that are still, even today, posting tarot cards and saying, yeah, this means things are going to be great. Last week, someone said that the chemtrails are full of vitamins. Like, we were watching a horrible spectacle. I don't mean to be so negative about it, but it's just terrifying, because you realize we can't rely on these. There's so few of us that actually see what's happening. The rest they're making this inmate toilet wine, you know. They're fermenting peaches that they stole at lunch, and they're selling that to each other, and we're getting drunk from it instead of actually talking about what's really happening, because we'd rather define, like, the biggest question. I don't know why this question isn't all over the internet. Why was Steve Bannon at Epstein's house last year on August 11th? Ironic, right? August 11th last year. Same day last year.
1 year out from the 9th of August.
On the 11th, Steve Bannon shows up at Epstein's house before 7 a.m. Why is he there? And more importantly, why are Q people not going, hey, why is he there? Like, why is that such a quiet topic? You know? We're doing things like, well, no, if you take Trump's last tweet and divide the number of seconds, subtract it from the speed of light, you get 17. And that means patriots are in control. That means we're going to win.
That's right.
That's what's happening around. So we're seeing the mind control all around us. We're seeing people say, no, Florida's not a problem. We're seeing people say, yeah, I don't want to look like someone that doesn't like Jews, so I don't really care that we can't boycott Israel. It's so effective. And you can go up to someone and say, hey, this is happening. And they're just like, yeah, that's sure. Yeah. Like, that's all you get.
Oh, no, I know. That's, I was shocked to honestly, James, to see it come to be such an open dialogue talking about, first and foremost, just Zionism. Like, you used to not even be able to talk about Zionism, but let alone openly discussing, what they call nowadays the Jewish question. I guess they've always called it that. But any of us out here that have been conspiracy researchers forever, everybody knows where most of these rabbit holes go. There's at least somebody pom-pom, rah-rah cheerleading on the side that Jews are behind everything, you know, like anyone that studies this stuff knows. And there's also plenty of credence you can add to showing connections. And to me, that's all a trap that they've intentionally set all these years. Not that Jewish people aren't directly involved in lots of nefarious things. That I think they set it up this way so that you kind of run yourself off the road, you know. So I was shocked to see the internet become like where it didn't immediately just get hammered down. Like people actually are curious and they're willing to have open dialogue. And you got people like E. Michael Jones representing a side that doesn't have anything to do with genetics and DNA, and claiming that it stems from, you know, the crucifixion, and that, you know, if you reject Jesus Christ as the Logos, then you automatically take up the side of being a revolutionary against what's right, you know. So I was shocked, but now as it develops, I'm thinking that they had to, that's all kind of managed too. They're bringing it out so that they can lead us to the next step, which is what you were just talking about. Like, okay, I'm going to bring it out, hype it up, get everybody talking about it, and then say, man, some of you are probably going to need to be looked at a little closer with AI, and if we can't medicate you, we might have to incarcerate you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. It's obviously it's already happened. I don't even know what happened with the trial with the quote quote monster. You know, Donald Trump called Nicholas Cruz a monster, and we don't even know what he pleaded. We don't really know what happened. We're never going to know, which means any of us could be next. Like. And that's insane. It's insane. I don't even like putting that vibration out for other people to hear. That we shouldn't be saying that to each other. But at the same time, we shouldn't be ignoring what's happening. And we're in that trance now because we're surrounded by so many people that would rather just be comfortable. Honestly, for the first time in my life, I'm seeing it as this is not going to be fixed. I'm going to have to go somewhere. Because we are the New World Order, but we're under the impression that we're the last bastion holding off the New World Order.
Right. We're
actually the ones like putting fuel into the machine that's causing this to happen everywhere. We are responsible for that, you know, and we don't have a choice. 40% of our resources is going into this machine, and these things are happening regardless of if you want to do it or not. And, you know, they might shut me down. They might shut you down. They might, it doesn't matter. It's still going to keep happening. It's the only way to stop this is that all of us would have to alchemically pull our belief out of the system. Now, I can do that. I know you guys can do that. I bet most of our audience can, but we can't make enough people do that. We can't convince enough people to even try that because there's so much confusion with all the different dissonance around that it's really hard to get everybody on the same page, you know? I had someone 2 days ago get mad at me going, no, the eye on the back of the pyramid is God's eye. And that means he loves you. That means he's watching you. And it's like, what do you say to that? Like, how do you even respond to that? There's no way you can.
Well, yeah, they call it the eye of providence. I mean, that's you know, I've seen that response about the all-seeing eye in general. That, I mean, that is one of its titles, that it's the eye of providence. So then you have to answer for yourself in your own heart. Is that the God that you want to believe in and worship and pay homage to? Or is that the demiurge that at the best is just like a blind, ignorant manager who's doing a shit job of making the world effective for you to exist in? That's a personal choice, right? And I feel bad for people that they don't see and they feel okay, because a lot of us are out here sounding the alarm. And like you said, it's not sounding the alarm like we have to get up and fight. And I said this last week, I remember that, like, we're here now, is happening now. You have to make a personal decision whether or not you think you can move in this in the United States of America or wherever you are. But, you know, we're seeing it here. We're definitely feeling like we're under the laser. Like you said, I've had that thought. Maybe it's time to bail off of this place. Maybe I need to expatriate, you know? And I'm not prepared to do that, but there was a time when you couldn't have convinced me that that thought would even cross my mind. But
yeah, I'm the same way. I never would have even considered that. The only time I did was when I was in Belize, in Costa Rica. It was just so nice there.
Yeah, yeah, a beautiful place will make you think twice.
Why don't I stay, you know? But then I found out, well, no, in Belize you can't work, so you can't stay. There's just no way. They're not going to let you work here. There's just, unless you're rich, that's the only way you can survive in Belize.
Yeah, Belize is an amazing place. An English-speaking country in South America, that's a pretty amazing place, yeah.
Yeah. It's this stuff is happening. I don't see it changing. And the main reason why is because of all the toilet wine. That's why I get so mad at these other Q people that are leading the lemmings down the street. You know, I brought it up again, going, guys, why? Give me a good reason why Bannon was there. And the first reason a Q person said, a real prominent one said, coincidence. It was just a coincidence that Bannon was there.
Yeah.
And these same people that say coincidence, you know, they're the ones that are like, D5, declassify on the 5 a.m. Yeah, but 5 years from now. Yeah, that's what it means. Okay, we just have to wait 5 years, and then all this is going to come out. These are, like Michael Aquino said, these are patterns. We are trying to fit into the nebulous pattern that's around us. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
In other words, we're living in a world that is, there are anti-Semitic sharp Legos all over the floor, and you have the tenderest, rawest feet ever. And you were told, this is free land for you, go. And you're pushed out. And you're not going to ever be able to hang out in that room with any kind of flow state. There's just too many freaking Legos on the ground. It's just impossible. You're not going to be able to do that. They're going to call that the new life. The new life's going to be living in that Lego carpet. That's going to be the new human state. And this is really what's going to make transhumanism become desirable. People are they're going to make it so uncomfortable inside themselves that they're going to want to leave. The new world order that's coming, people are going to beg for it. They're not just going to, they already are begging for it. They already want the machine inside them. They already want this to happen. Why? Because it's too awful to burn all the calories it takes to try and resolve what's true, and all the shootings, all the white nationalists, don't trust me, whatever. It's just too difficult to live that way.
No,
it's going to be
it's
better
going to be way
inside the
easier.
machine.
Yeah, way easier to. I mean, I've even made that joke myself. Gosh, won't it be easier once we're inside the machine? Then there won't be so many buttons to push. You know, I mean, but that's just flippant sarcasm. Obviously, I'm not serious. My temptation more and more is to step completely away from all machines, even at sacrificing something as good as what we're doing right now. You know, because I feel good about this conversation, but the things we're trying to address are just horrible. And they've got everybody polarized. That's one thing I can say about our show and our audience for the most part. I don't feel like we're rah-rahing each other and saying how good we are and counting our gun collections. And I also don't feel like we're like just attacking some invisible enemy like Antifa or whatever. We seem to have a mutual ability to look at all this stuff and do what my friend Nikki Rapana said, which is to live outside the dialectic. Or Jason Horsley says it too, to be liminalist. That's brilliant.
That's brilliant.
To remain in the liminal space. Yeah. And that's what's harder and harder to do, because to do it, it's like they're increasing the speed on the Tetris blocks. You got to keep kung fu and stuff back out of your space, or you have to grab it and immediately turn it into something neutral. That neutral not to the world, but neutral to you. Minimum. It has to, because otherwise it's hitting you, you know? And I think we're doing a good job, but I can't deny that it's all ramping up. And like I've said over and over again, with the communitarian stuff, Nikki Rapana's book was called 2020, Our Common Destiny, for a reason. And that's because this was their end goal. We're at the beginning of the autumn, you know, at the end of the summer, getting ready to head towards 2020, not just for an election, but for what I see as it's the crowning glory of their achievement, of everything you're talking about. This is what they've been working on.
Yeah, you're so right.
And they're not off schedule. They're on schedule, you know.
That's why Kushner was anointed by so many different, facades. I know we talked about that last week, but, he was anointed by business, politics, religion, countries, billionaires, all of them, and the Israeli people. And then now it's with 10 holy oils burning, there's only one more holy oil left. The 11 holy oils of the tabernacle
haven't been lit in 2,000 years, and I think they're going to be lit soon. I think that's why the sacrifice happened last winter. That's why, in the Temple Mount, they sacrificed a lamb. These things are, the Moshiach has been named. This isn't even a guess. In fact, the 11th son, this is from a link that I sent you guys earlier today. The 11th son was Joseph, and he was the bringer of the Mashiach. And this is why I'm kind of thinking the 9th of Av is so... He was 11th son born to Yaakov, the one through whom the hand of Hashem became clear, and from whom Mashiach ben Yosef will descend to help us across the threshold into Mashiach's time. Now, Israel has declared Jared Kushner the Mashiach. So when you could read this and say, will descend to help us across the threshold into Jared Kushner's time. That threshold is going to be peace in the Middle East. And that same peace is going to be peace in America from gun violence. It's always going to be, the sinister will always come in on the innocent note. It's every single time. That's how it happens. So this will be, we're gonna end the gun violence, which means we're gonna end something else about you. We're going to end peace in the Middle East. We're going to end the fact that anyone else has ownership in a country, except for us. Iran is going to be gone if they're not already gone. These things are in real time happening all around us, and there's really nothing we can do about it, guys. I mean, there's really nothing. It's going to happen, and that sucks. I don't like to talk about things that make me powerless. I don't like to discuss it with other people, to show, hey, look how powerless you are. I don't like it to be that way, but this is what's happening, and
Well, there's huge power in acknowledging that you see that you're powerless. If we're all in a raft and we're paddling along and everything's fine until the sound of the water gets louder and we look up ahead and we double check the map and we're definitely going over the falls, then we're going over the falls, we have to change our plan. If the plan was, hey, let's get the hell out of the river, and we missed, then we missed. And now we have to decide, even if it looks like certain death, we have to decide what that means and accept your fate and move forward somehow. And like I said, I see that as a spiritual thing more than physical, because we can't really be overly concerned for our physical body. You have to be okay in your mind and in your heart, especially, to have life be worth anything. I don't want to be physically safe and absolutely broken and miserable inside, so, and I mean, it's...
Well, I don't want to be broken, I've been thinking a lot lately about what can I do to empower, what suggestions can I make to empower other people. And today I posted about, this sounds silly, but I posted to buy silver. I'm not saying go out and sell everything you can and buy as much silver. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about buy one silver coin, just one. There's something real about this. It's got, so if you melt a quarter, it's no longer worth 25 cents. It's been melted. It has no essence. It has no essential value to it. If you take a dollar bill and you coat the top of it with paint, ink, it's not a dollar anymore. It's lost its value. It was a facade. If you set it on fire, it's going to burn. It's gone. But if you melt silver, if you scratch off the surface of this, it's still silver. It's always alchemically valuable, and it's heavy. This is a piece of magic. I know it sounds weird, but this is like a magical device, and I really encourage everyone to just buy one. You could buy one for $18, and just having one, it really helps you hold those calories when you're looking around the world and seeing how fake everything is.
I'm talking about prana calories, the spiritual calories that like, so you're not.
Yes.
Because what you described, or what you described was the feeling of taking loss, like you said, what I would call, no, it's more than just spiritual. What's the, like, you feel the zap of psychic energy draining away from you. And folks, if you've never picked up an ounce of silver and held it in your hand, there used to be a famous silver bug. That's what they call people who hawk and collect silver and preach silver all the time. They call them silver bugs. And there used to be a guy out of Spokane, Washington, that would go stand in the Central Park downtown and just hand people the coin so that they could feel in their hand what James is describing. Because until you've done it, you don't know. And that's why he's encouraging you right now to buy one, not because of the value of it versus your paper money, but because the tangibility is impossible to describe until it's in your hand. The weight of it, especially if it's minted fresh and it's seen a lot of circulation, it's super shiny and beautiful. It's heavier than any other coin you've ever put in your hand. If you get a whole stack of them like that, you don't want to put them down. You just kind of want to roll them around in your hand because there's something tangible there, and it's not a nickel, and it's not a dime, and it's not a quarter. And if you want to, you can melt it down and make it into anything you want. You know, you can make a mold and make it into anything you want. You can make it into a new coin, make it into a figurine. You can make it into a bar, you know, and
hammer it out forever, make jewelry out of it.
That's right. You can make a mirror out of it and polish it.
Yep.
And it's because. No, go ahead, James.
Well, this is the same technology in movie theater, the silver screen. When you go into a movie theater, you're laying down and you're looking at, not only is the screen made out of silver, but the film was developed using a silver formula, silver nitrate or anyway, it's alchemically transmitted into light, into the film, and then onto the screen itself. This is alchemy.
Antibacterial properties too. They used to drop it. They dropped it into the barrels of water, fresh water on boats, as like a tithing to Neptune, I guess. But just the coin being in the barrel, it would keep the water from getting fouled up with bacteria.
Yeah. That's why people do the whole colloidal silver thing, because it works. You know, memory. The water has a memory. People used to poo-poo it and laugh at everybody for their homeopathic remedies, but water has been proven to have a literal memory. And so if you tell it to memorize silver, then it makes the water healthier and safer, you know, because precious metals are precious for a reason. It's not because someone decided to say they're precious.
Yeah.
They're precious because they're indescribable. There's magic in them. You know, gold and silver and copper too. These are magic things, you know.
That's why silverware is so big. And silver cutlery.
Yeah, so they are. That's why they had silver. Now here, this one's similar to James's. I was popping different coins up on the screen. I was looking.
Think about Paul Revere. He was, a silversmith. These people that are alchemists are going to use silver. And I'm under the impression, guys, that if you get one of these, the second it hits your hand, you're going to feel the magic from it. And you're also going to be charging it. You're going to be charging this with your own will, with your own intention. And a lot can happen from there. This is really heavy, which means it's going to hold that prana for a long time. That $18, if you trade it for that, here's why it's a spell. If you order this for $18, it sounds like I'm a commercial. I'm not selling this, by the way. but if you agree to buy this for $18, you are divesting $18 out of NWO money, out of the pyramid money. You're taking that out. You're out of your life. You're saying, I do not want this anymore. And you're exchanging it for this. You're exchanging it for alchemical magic. The same stuff in the movie theater, the same transmutive power. What does a movie screen do but accept your admiration? When you're inside a movie theater, let's say you're watching a comedy, your admiration for the actor and the actress is coming from you, your awareness through your attention. It's going through the screen, and it's being collected by the owner of that movie, by the owner of that film, personally. we can argue about this. And then I think that he then bequeaths some of that prana to the actors and actresses. That's just personally how I think it works. I can't see energy, but this is how I picture that it would work. I think there's a lot more to ownership than we think. To declare that you own something is sort of like casting a spell on it, and you sort of have the ownership of its consent, but also its payoff too, chronically. So think about this as something that is a vessel for your prana. And when you divest $18 and pull it out of the system and put it back into silver, what you're really doing is you're investing in yourself. You're investing in your essence. You're saying the facade of money is bullshit. The essence of value is important to me. And to me, that would be the biggest alchemical thing that we could do right now. Obviously, if you could afford gold, go for it. But I can't. This is what I have, and I'm very happy with it. It's, but it'd be cool to even do it with gold too.
Well, people need to realize too that there's more symbology there. Silver has always been the money of the people. Okay, this is the money of the people. Gold has always been the money of the super wealthy and the bankers and the controllers, the monarchs and the people that work around the monarchy. And don't get me wrong, if you can afford gold, I recommend having some as a long-term investment. And honestly, holding an ounce of gold to change your life forever, because it's almost seems twice as heavy as that silver coin. So it's just a mind-blowing trip to feel the weight in the symbol that is gold. But silver, to me, is more special. It's more precious because it's functional. Not only does it encompass everything James just said, to where silver has, it's a symbol of you taking that piece back and being able to hold on to it. But if it comes down to needing to do something with it, it's functional. It circulates easy, if you want to switch away from the energetic and energy side, where you're talking about how you feel and how you relate to something, to the actual financial side, to buy junk silver, which is dimes and quarters that are 90% pure, if God forbid, if the money system does go kaput, that's what'll trade better than anything, because it's small denominations and it's functional, So silver, to me, is valuable. It's logical as a real financial instrument, and everything else you said is true. I'll be right back. I'm going to be right back. You guys go ahead.
Okay. Well, that would be one way to basically find empowerment, to get back to sovereignty, to push back into something. And another thing would be to talk about the word unanimous government. Right now, we've been tricked into thinking that majority rule is a good idea, that the idea that a large collection of people can sort of override what another person would want. That's really actually pretty psychopathic if you think about it. And if you could just ingest the idea of unanimous government, that's another way where it's sort of like doing the silver trick, but in your own world. If you could start to talk to people about this idea that unanimous government is something I prefer. And unanimous government obviously is the idea that, look, unless I agree to it, I'm not responsible for it. I don't have to give it my energy. I don't have to give it my resources. I don't have to even approve of it. Government is the tapestry of agreements. It's not the tapestry of mob rule. This system of unanimous government we had for about 600 years before our founding fathers started this country. The Iroquois, that's our word for them, we had this system since 1140. I think it was the first eclipse was documented. And the people of the Longhouse, the 5 families around the Great Lakes, had this unanimous system of government. Basically, it was like a den mother, and then she would have 2 chiefs, a red chief and a white chief. The red chief's the war chief, the white chief's the peace chief. If there was a time of war, she sends her red chief, and the red chief is in charge. And then during peacetime, the white chief is in charge. But beneath this system was the bicameral legislation that you know now, that we had in our government. But this was actually laid out in the Iroquois Nation. They had their own constitution. John Hancock looked at it, Ben Franklin did. Most of our forefathers looked at it. In fact, we invited them to the Capitol, to Philadelphia. But they were kept upstairs. They were kept out of the light, and they were actually never given credit for the system that they had developed. We took that system and we bastardized it. We took the parts that was unanimous and instead turned them into majority rule. And what that really does is it literally turns the machine on. It creates a system where a clump of people have more authority than a single person. Whereas before, with the unanimous government, it was the exact opposite. Every sovereign individual has ownership of their airspace, their land. Each person is their own EPA, in a sense. They are in charge of their sovereignty, which means that there's no way anyone could ever speak on their behalf, regardless of if it was 99-1. This creates a government where, look, you're not going to get a street light up if one person doesn't want that in the one spot. But you're also going to get a government where you're only putting the systems that are going to serve you. This is a new concept where you're becoming sovereign again. And if we could just talk about that psychically, we could start to reemphasize how important the individual is, how valuable the individual is. Because right now we have a system that's telling out the individuals, you can't be trusted with what you say, you can't be trusted with who you boycott, and you can't be trusted to defend yourself. None of these things we can trust you on. You're too white nationalist now. You're too, gunfiery. It's always another label. It's always another Hegelian dialectic to take it over. These are the only things that I've thought of that have kept my prana good, have kept me in my power, because I've been like, I know I'm sovereign. I know I can vibrate that sovereignty. And if someone else recognizes the sovereignty in them from seeing it in me, there's a prana exchange there. They feel better. I feel better. It takes me off this realm where I could show you now, hey, here's this picture of 12 shoes that were showed at the shooting, and every shoe is brand new. Why did the Los Angeles Times run a picture of 12 shoes and all of them are brand new, and they're supposed to pretend like these are victim shoes? You get lost in the pit of lies. One last thing on this. Imagine that your belief, imagine you have 100 belief tokens when you wake up every day. And those belief tokens you get to distribute out as you see fit. So 40% of your belief tokens automatically go to the government right now. It's just that's how it works. So now you only have 60 left that come back to you. What we don't understand as people is that belief is finite. Our belief is the most valuable resource that there is in the world. It's more valuable than what we earn. It's more valuable than the silver I'm holding. What we believe in is absolutely the number one thing that they want from you. All the mind control, all the trauma programming, all the programs that they haven't unleashed on you are to get your belief. They want your belief. And that's why I'm pushing things like the sovereignty of the essence, finding the essence of things, divesting your belief from the system and putting it back into yourself. This is just the only thing that I can come up with that I think is constructive. I know it is constructive, but if more and more of us were doing it, I think it could really be constructive on a larger scale too. Well, bring us back to the people of the Longhouse.
It will be, even on the smallest scale. It's valuable because we all deal with each other as individuals. I mean, we have an audience here right now, but really, even you and Jem and I have to deal with each other individually during this episode. We can't all three talk like British Parliament and expect much to come of it. I mean, we can, but it's not the same as the exchange that happens, because I had to run off and use the restroom when I was going to try and find something, right? And what I was looking for, I didn't find. I have a 10-ounce silver bar that someone gave me as a gift, and I was going to hold it up. But I found something else made out of sterling silver that to me is 10 times more important. It's the only thing I've ever invested in my life, and it's a ring. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. Let me see if I can make myself bigger. I want to see if I can. Does that make me bigger? It doesn't. That's all right. So what I'll do is I'll post a picture later on Twitter or put it up there. Okay, so this is a ring, like to wear on your finger, and it says dementia, because that's the name we gave to our heavy metal band. When I was in college, our teacher taught us how to carve this out of wax, and then use a centrifugal casting machine to invest this into sterling silver. And we took, like I said, we took junk coins. They call them junk. That's just what the market calls them. Junk silver is dimes and quarters, and it's 90% pure. And we melted it with a torch, and you pull back on the handle of this little machine the teacher built, and this bar falls out of the way, and it just spins like hell, you know. And so you melt all that metal down, and we had made, first you make go through the whole process to make something for this to be received into. But it made me really excited and happy to bring it and show it to you guys, because what I was looking for was a bigger example of what James had. Like, here's a gift somebody gave me, and it is valuable. It's 10 ounces of silver. But the feeling of a 10-ounce silver bar is amazing. Like, it's awesome, you know. It's awesome, you know. And
I gotta say, guys, it's pre 1964 quarters and nickels. So always check your quarters and nickels, and if there's no pink, if there's no like pink metal sandwiched on the on the edges, then it could be junk silver.
Yeah, if you're looking at a quarter especially is easiest to feel. You reach in your pocket and you look at your change because you're going to count some out, and one of them feels kind of heavy, and you notice that it's 1964 or before. You want to separate that out. Now, Jim's a bit of a coin collector. I'm sure he goes through most of his coins when he has time. I forget. Yeah. You know, I've got piggy banks that I stuff them all in, and I hope that I remember to sort through them all before I go give them to the coin machine or whatever, or down to the bank. But
you can also tell if you drop one, because the plunk it makes is a little bit different. It's kind of flatter if it's silver. It's something that you would recognize if you were dropping a handful of quarters and one of them was didn't belong there. You'd be like, oh, what's that? It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this episode right now, and sometime in the future this happens, you gotta come tell us. Come back to this episode and comment, or find us on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I know James is on Facebook. Jim's not on Facebook. Well, he doesn't use Facebook. He's on there, but good luck getting a message to him that way.
Also, the cool thing to do is to go to the bank and buy rolls of 50-cent pieces, because a lot of times there's silver ones that are mixed in there, and people didn't pick them out, and nobody really uses them that much, so they stay in the back for a long time.
Yeah.
You can buy them and look through them and then sell them back.
Yeah, some people do that. Some people try to make a little side hustle just on finding silver coins in the rolls, right, Jim?
Well, yeah. If you find one a roll that has silver on the end, you can sell it for, instead of like $10, which the face value is, you can sell it online for like $150, because who knows if there's more silver in there. So like the whole roll could go for more.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of interesting. Also, like, a really weird thing people do is they look at the serial numbers on bills, and if there's a strange number on a bill, like 5 sevens or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like all mixed up in the serial number, they'll put that up online and sell it for quite a bit of money.
Okay, so this is exactly what I was talking about earlier when I was saying the magic of coincidences, and gematria. Like this is a perfect example of that. If you were to find a serial number that had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, was to go up and down, for example, you already know intrinsically. It's not like when you were 3 years old they said, now don't forget, if you find a dollar that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, it's, you intrinsically know, you have gnosis that this would be something that someone else would also find to be more powerful. It has more prana in it, you could almost argue. It's going to be a more recognizable marker. It's very much like a catchy song would survive for 60 years, while a boring song would only make it like a year. It's very much the similar kind of a thing. It's going to have a much longer essence to it because of that intrinsic value that it had. That's what they're trying to do with Kushner. That's what they've already done with Kushner. That's what these elite families are. And I use elite really loosely here, but that's what the elite families are all about. They're trying to constantly set themselves up as, well, no, you see those 13 statues on top of Basilica Square in the Vatican that overlooked the keyhole. Well, I'm number 3. That I know it looks like a saint, but no, that's the Merovingians. That's the Astors. That's the whatever a big one I think is the Chigi, Chigi. That's a weird family. They're the only family that actually is on the obelisk itself in the center. Their coat of arms is there. These people are, if you were to, okay, so imagine your coat of arms. Imagine that your family is one of those statues above Vatican. And you know that because your great-grandfather told you, and he knows that because his great-grandfather told him, and he knows that because he was the very first guy that came up with this plan. He knew the architect, and they're like, yeah, we're going to pretend like these are saints, but actually this one's going to be me, and we're going to be this new Dark Mother family. The charge from that statue is very powerful. If you know, this is what I meant about it's about ownership of the movie, because if you know that third statue is you, then every time if you're walking in an airport and you see a picture of the Vatican, you're going to get a bump. Anytime you see a nun walk by, you're going to get a bump. Anytime if you look at Showtime and then there's this epic about the Pope or whatever, and they're showing the scene of your statue, you're going to get a bump. And every time you realize that, wow, this is where thousands of Christians were killed, if you're into that, you're going to get a bump. You're going to say, oh, that's the Circus Maximus from a long time ago. It's all this history is there, and here I am towering over it as the third saint. People are even calling me a saint. You're going to get a bump. These are highly charged pranic instruments, and it's the owner. In other words, even though all the people are there in the grounds, the courtyard, walking around, they don't have to know that the prana goes to the Vanderbilts. Like, they don't have to understand that that's how it works. They're going to pour their prana into that statue, and the owner of it, the person that understands they own it, is going to get all of that back. Tying that to the bill, if you were to be the one that's distributing that bill, in a very tiny way, you're also getting the prana back from that because you're the one that found that bill. Another example is I have a friend that would always find 4-leaf clovers. Well, what that really meant was one day she found 4-leaf clovers, 4-leaf clovers within 15 minutes when she was 12. That event when she was 12 chronically gave her this belief that I can find 4-leaf clovers better than anybody. It chronically bumped her throughout the rest of her life. So what we see as a rational world, the algorithmic thinking that that Aquino's talking about, only sees a patch of grass and there's some clovers there and some happen to have 4 leaves. But underneath it, in the Prana economy, one of those 4-leaf clovers, if it's picked, has a very special energy to it that will last for 46 years through this girl's life as she becomes an adult. Like, she doesn't even know that it's all tied back to that one 4-leaf clover. Do I sound like a madman, or do you guys?
No, totally get that.
No, that's the other thing is Jem and I talk a lot about the fact that and the ring is up on the screen. I took a picture of it and stuck it on my Twitter so you guys could see it. Jem and I talk about the fact that you can only really function inside of what you believe. Mm-hmm. So, like, we've all have you guys seen that video where the monkey is in the guy in the monkey suit is in the room, and there's all kinds of other stuff going on, and they have they use it as an experiment in school, and you don't even see
people playing basketball.
Yeah, and you don't even see
the guy in a gorilla suit walks by.
Yeah, right? And so that's a great example if you've never heard of this concept that or the same as natives not recognizing sailboats coming onto their shores because they've never seen one before.
They can't fathom what that would look like.
Yeah, they don't have it. There's not an archetype to reference inside of their mind. And so
that's why so many drivers hit people on motorcycles, because they're looking for cars.
Yeah, exactly. I constantly look for motorcycles when I drive because I know how much more dangerous it is. And you have to look. You have to look when you're looking left. You need to be thinking about whether or not bicycles, pedestrians, motorcycles, and other strange vehicles are coming. Otherwise, you might not see them, you know. And so I would say the same is true for what you said about the four-leaf clover and other similar things. Like, I'll give an example for myself. Like, in the last 2 or 3 years, I found a half ounce of gold and 2 gemstones just in the streets, you know, like on the grass. And so now I'm starting to, I mean, it's just because I'm ADD, and if there's something shiny, I look, you know, and so I got lucky a few times. But now I'm starting to think, hey, maybe I'm a lucky treasure hunter. So now I'm looking more, you know, and so now I'm looking forward to finding me an ounce of gold in the street again, or maybe a bar of gold underneath the bush. Who knows? But the same thing happened to your friend, that she got primed by that experience of 4 in a row to believe that she could see more. And so she sees more.
And that really, that's a spell. That's whether she meant to do it or not. She entered into an alchemical ritual and she pulled it off. Like she won the spell. Yeah. She created the circle where she was looking. She set a parameter in her mind, whether she knew it or not. If I find 4 4-leaf clovers, that is enough for the threshold that will charge me until I'm 46 years old. And I will still consider myself the queen of 4-leaf clovers at that time. So we have this is what I was talking about earlier about, that's why they want your belief so bad. Your belief it's just the most valuable essence that there is. I think this is why they try and scare you off 666, because it allows them, it's like they're putting up a VIP rope around the number of the sun. Because that's what 666 is. It's the number of the sun. And by putting a VIP rope around it, all the commoners don't touch it. They're like, oh no, that's Satan or that's devil or whatever. It's allowing the prana from that number to just be theirs, you know, to just be something that they get to tap into. So much of what we see that's happening around the world is this kind of hoarding, you know, the constriction of belief, the constriction of prana. It's why I'm starting to want to describe the Bible as, if you open the Bible, it's almost like that ghost trap from Ghostbusters, where they slide it underneath the ghost and it opens up and it sucks all the plasma down into it. What it's sucking down into it is that on one tower you've got this cruel God that wants revenge and wants you to kill your own son in his presence. And then the other is, well, I will promise you salvation, but only after you admit that I had to kill the most amazing person that ever lived in the world so you could, you know, fumble around like a dickhole right now. This sets up a paradigm where all of your belief gets sucked into this book, because you want salvation. You don't want to be in the pit. You really want to be back where you were before you saw the book, where you're back on the surface again. You're willing to do anything to that. And the challenge to break away from that, if you were to say, well, I don't believe that there was a royal bloodline, God, I'm sorry, but why would you pick one person and say, this is your only son? When you're doing that, you're actually saying everyone else isn't your son. You're actually pushing everyone else away. In fact, you're putting one person on top, and then you've got a trinity. So now you've got like a tiny pyramid, and then you've got 12 saints underneath that. So now you've got like a row of officers, and then you've got a clergy underneath that, and then you've got the congregation. But even that is only, well, no, but that you're not the chosen people. So all you guys are still in this pyramid, but you're all below these other set of people that are the chosen people. And they're the ones that are on top of you. And then inside of their chosen people, they have another chosen person named Jared Kushner, and he's on top of them. So you end up forming a pyramid out of these two towers. Out of these two towers are creating a pyramid, and you don't even know it. It puts you in that chain of command system. It puts you in a prana trap, very much like this Ghostbuster thing. And that's why if we could find a way to peel our belief, not out of the Bible, like never read the Bible again, but when you open the Bible, you're taught every time you go into the dentist office. There's all these magazines that are waiting for you, telling you about the chosen people, or telling you about God, or telling you it's charged. Before you even open the book, it's charged as, this is God's infallible word. It's basically a relic. You need to treat it as such. And if you doubt it, you're going to be just like QAnon. If you doubt Q, it's because you don't read Q enough. That's what they always say. If you doubt Q, you need to read Q more. If you doubt the Bible, you need to read the Bible more. It's never the fault of the Bible. It's never the fault of QAnon. It couldn't be King James, who decided to use Easter inside the Bible. It couldn't be a mistake that was made in one of the many translations, like back in the Codex Vaticanus or Sinaiticus or Vetus Latina or the Vulgates. It couldn't have been a mistake that happened in the Nicene Creed. It couldn't have been the Tyndale Bible, like all these crazy different iterations. It's even literally written in Greek. Why no one laughs at that? It's like, wait a minute, why would God why would God choose his word in Greek? Like, it's like, what, are you speaking Greek to me? It's so funny how much of our belief gets sucked into this before we can even read it, before we can even process. We can never treat it like a 4-leaf clover, because the kind of magic that happens there is that the second you go in, you're put into fear on the first one, you're put into trauma, and then you're offered salvation, but it's only through these other debts that you're taking on, these other things. So it's trapping our belief system. It's making us set up for a savior, and that's what every politician is. He's another savior running off the exact same program, the exact same two towers, just like 9/11, just like World War I and II, just like communism and capitalism. All these are about, this is all about mind control. This is like the biggest Hegelian dialectic spell you could possibly imagine. And it was set 2,000 years ago, like that long ago. That's how long ago it was set. The Egyptian dynasties before, it even has its own timeline, guys. Why no one's walking around going, it's fucked up that it's the year 2019. I mean, it's fucked up that one day we said, hey, now it's year 0. Like, now it's year 0, everybody. And everyone's like, okay, yeah, it's like the psychic mind freak that happens when all of a sudden you're like, no, now it's year 0, is weird. It's weird that we're all treating that like it's normal. That's how you erase history without even knowing that you're doing it. It's always the same technique around this one spell. The United States of Amnesia, as Gore Vidal calls it. It's literally part of this spell. It's part of this spellcraft that makes this get worse for us instead of better, because we're not really able to jump out of it. Anyway.
No, I appreciate all that. I do. I think that the thing that I would add to that is that there's for one thing, in all the different various scriptures, no matter which ones you look at, and I'm not talking about Christian scriptures, and every place that people find enlightenment through texts, there's always, I don't want to say 100% always, because someone might be able to find an exception, but there's typically information there that says, use this as a beginning, and figure out how to talk to God yourself. Tune yourself in. So when I appreciate that you say all that, but at the same time you say that you constantly talk to God, and I believe you. And I don't think that your relationship with God requires any Holy Scripture if you don't feel that it does, because you have the line open. And that's between you and God, And so I feel like everything that's available in the world is always being used with the potential either way, right? It could be mind control. For some people, they would tell you that the one scripture or another is the only one thing that ever liberated them, and they might be right, that they were completely trapped in whatever they had prior, and that's what liberated them, so.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing, I don't want to take any power away from anybody. But when you go into that field, there are certain mind control rules that are put on you.
Right.
And and there are necessary consequences to that. Like, I want to contrast with, like, if you were to look at like Marty Leeds' work, that guy does amazing work on like, that's a perfect example to say, oh yeah, well, James, well, while you're over here in negative land, look at all this positive stuff over here. So, I'm not trying to say that it's always this polarity, but I hope people can appreciate what I'm pointing out about these two towers and about this same Hegelian spell, because it was just for me to tell God what I felt about the idea of there being a royal bloodline, about where God would come in and imbue one person and say, you were my blood child. For me to tell God that I didn't believe that was just as hard, actually harder, than me telling someone online that I don't believe that the Holocaust story as told is accurate as it's defined. That if you were to uncover World War II, you would actually see that there were many different people that were slaughtered, and many of them were actually done by Allied troops through our own actions. The same kind of guilt fencing is set up when you're talking about the Holocaust, and the same as when you're talking to God about this bloodline issue, this idea that, hey, God, it's setting up this weird blood oath before I'm born that says, dude, you owe if someone was to save my life and die, when I was 17, I would feel indebted to them. It's just how anyone nice would feel. You would just naturally feel that way. I would dedicate my whole life to somehow trying to find a way to pay that debt to his family. This is a good thing about us, is that we're empathic this way. But the Bible does set up that dynamic, which does make it very difficult to maintain that flow state where there's not like a guilt prana that's being sucked out of you all the time because you might have a doubt about something. And that's where the scripture thing, I think, falls into a problem, because when you do the math, it's like, it just doesn't make any sense that God would choose to write a book in Greek at one point in time, in one space geographically, and then have everyone else just know. In fact, it's all in Judea. We had 500 prophets that were all within one geographical area, and that's supposed to be the entire world's religion, and it only took place in like 50 square miles.
Right. And it's pretty outrageous, isn't it?
And what happened to Jesus? He was tortured. So it elicits guilt. You elicit sympathy for him. But then after Jesus died, what happened to his 12 disciples? All 12 of them were tortured and killed. They were martyred. They were crucified. They were stabbed. St. James, I think, he was like hanging out in India, and they're like a bunch of people just came up and stabbed him.
Oh, there's like a whole book. Have you ever heard of the book Fox's Book of Martyrs?
No.
It's a whole book. It's as thick as the Bible. It's all about the people who've been martyred in the name of Jesus Christ. It's an amazing book.
Many.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's in volumes now. I mean, that's just the Fox's Book of Martyrs was something I asked for when I was about 17 or 18 years old because I was curious, but it's a downer, man. It's a downer to read it because, well, it depends on how you look at it. I also see it as affirmation, because if you have such conviction that even someone says, we're gonna throw you in the fire, and you say, well, hallelujah, do it. There's something to that. There's something to that being over the top, imbued, with the power to say, okay, I don't care if I live or die because my convictions are that solid. But at the same time, it's really macabre and disheartening, this huge, thick book of martyrdom,
Well, what happens to your psychology? Because first of all, you can already picture what happens to your psychology, to your psyche. If your Messiah was blood killed, was tortured and mutilated for your behalf, the greatest guy in the world was cut short at 33 so you could live, that's already a prana suck. I know I've already said that. But now if you have the subset of 12 apostles, the 12 minions, they're all slaughtered too. Well, this is setting up a pyramid scheme of guilt. It's setting up a pyramid scheme of, hey, these are God's chosen people, and they were slaughtered too. So if you don't believe now, look at all these dead people that are so much better than you, that have suffered, and you won't even believe them. It sets up this is what I'm calling it, like that ghost trap like on Ghostbusters, because it's going to suck you in. If you have empathy, where is your empathy going to go when you read that story? You're going to find a way to distribute it to these saints. And then his mother was a virgin. But my gosh, it's like, the most precious thing you could possibly imagine. Of course I have to give that prana. Of course I have to pay that in some way. You would want to keep that flame burning the whole time. And back then, 2,000 years ago, you didn't have technology. All you could really do to control someone mentally is to set up some kind of blood oath, set up some kind of pranic slavery, if you think about it that way. And then if you really start to peel apart all the Abrahamic religions, they all have that same element to them, that you were lower, you were in the pit, but salvation can come to you, but it's only going to be by accepting that you belong in the pit, or that you were born in the pit. It depends on which side of your belief is. And those two towers, I think, is what's causing... okay, so I don't think it's the Jews. I know that's all we talk, it makes sense to... I'm not saying it's not the Jews, but I'm saying that exclusively it's not the Jews. There's actually something deeper in the roots of this than Jews. Can you pull up that image that I sent to Twitter in our group chat, SP?
Let's see. It's in our private messages. Let me make sure we're.
Yep.
Okay, here. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
It's in our private messages. It's on Gnosticism.
Let's see. Oh, you sent it just recently. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yep. I think that instead of it being the Jews, I'm going to call it inversion. Now we're going to call it Gnosticism so we can talk about it.
No, I understand. I mean, but if people don't understand the problem of definitions, then that's something they'll just have to look into for themselves. Gnosticism is a good placeholder word for exactly this type of discussion we're having. If you really want to know more about Gnosticism, then you got to study it. And you'll find that Gnostics don't agree what Gnosticism is or what the definition of the word is or where it came from and all that. But as far as it being a good placeholder for conversation, that's the only real use in the word, honestly. So it's fine.
And that's why I've been using inversion, because I actually think it's closer, because people will tell you that Gnosticism came after Christianity, and so that's not really what I mean, because what's happening with inversion, I don't know if you've got that graphic up, but tell me when you do.
I do. It's up there now. Oh, I just lost it. Hold on here just a second, James. I just lost it.
Before the Abrahamic religions came, you're looking at old ancient Judaism. And so you still had Kabbalah back then. You still had inversion. So Gnosticism is really more about how the Christians although paganism's in here, but I would almost rather call it inversion. And when I say inversion, what I mean is that step one of inversion, there is a secret inside of you and you need it. This is the first step of Gnosticism, is there's an esoteric hidden secret and you don't have it and you really need it. That's step one. Step two, you can get that secret, but you're going to have to claw your chest open to get it. You're going to have to invert yourself, okay? Now, if you're Sabotage Zevi, you're going to invert yourself through pedophilia. You're going to invert yourself through polygamy. You're going to invert yourself through convincing everyone to have group orgies. If you're a Christian, you're going to invert yourself through Satanism, maybe. You're going to invert yourself through gag reflex testing, like Joe Rogan on Fear Factor, where you're constantly fighting your gag reflex and learning how you're inverting, right? You're finding a way to turn yourself inside out because you're looking for this secret magic that you've been told is inside of you, okay? Now, Judaism, exact same thing, right? You invert yourself through Kabbalah. You study the Kabbalah over and over and over and over and over again for years and years and years and years. You're always not studying it enough. You're under the impression that if you peer through the numbers at the number 11, that you create a portal and you can slide through that hole, through that portal, and invert yourself and find this secret wisdom. the Gnosticism, the gnosis, right? Again, I don't think it's Gnosticism. I think it's inversion. And that inversion happens when we're exposed to two dissonant tones, the two towers, Old Testament, New Testament. You find if you study both books, you're going to spend the rest of your life confused. Well, wait a minute. Does God hate me? Does he love me? Which is it? And the deeper you go, the more you're going to invert yourself and come out with something such as, in Judaism, the Kabbalah, where now you're anointing Jared Kushner and you're setting up these bullshit faux $1.8 billion purchase deals and you're aligning him with property and you're doing all this other crazy stuff. You're inverting yourself through the Kabbalah. The same thing happens in Sufism, in Islam. You've got these people with like really, really weird stuff, you know, like, no, I'm going to cut that chick's genitals off because damn it, that's how you find gnosis. You have to be, you have to show the passion of Allah through your dominance or, you know, whatever screwed up thing it is. The point is that it's always inversion. The Rosicrucians with Christianity, exact same kind of thing. We have a secret. The secret is on wheels. If you look at the Rosicrucian, it was like a castle on wheels, right?
Yeah.
And the wheels were like always cruising around.
It's like the secret college.
It's like gypsy magic, you know? It's like you got, no, the answer is always just ahead. And we're always moving this secret shroud somewhere. No one's ever going to know what the secret is. That's causing the inversion to happen. And today, in the modern world, it's guys doing drugs, man. It's guys doing like, I'm going to do a shitload of ayahuasca. I'm going to do a shitload of mushrooms. I'm going to do as much acid as I can find because I'm trying to inversion. I'm looking for gnosis inside myself. Again, it always starts with there's a secret. It's inside you. And if you can't find it, you're really missing out.
Well, yeah, the transhumanism too, James. Don't leave that out now. That's
the perfect. I hadn't even thought about that.
No,
You're
that's
so right.
That's the one they're pointing at because they want us to actually invert right out of these bodies is the goal. You know, they want us to give up on this.
You nailed it. Yeah, and that's part of the whole, you know, dysphoria. You know, with gender dysphoria and with your identity and age. Age is a big one too. If you notice, the age dysphoria is, you know, has now come out where. You know, a 30-year-old man can act like a 7-year-old now, and it's totally cool. Everything's totally cool that way.
Well, I identify as a 19-year-old until I have to fall down, and then I guess I'm still 43, you know.
Yep.
When I fall down, I can tell all of a sudden I'm definitely 43, because when I was 17, I just get up. But now I just kind of lay there and take a breath, like, you know.
So picture this clam, this, you know, and inside the clam is this pearl. And if you can play two tones and they have just the right dissonance, that clam's going to get so annoyed, it's going to open. And it's going to get open because the music's going to be telling the clam there's salt inside your mouth. And it's very irritating and it's horrible. And you don't want that in there. You're going to have to get rid of that. It's killing you. You don't understand. It's the most precious secret ever that you have to get this clam out. And we end up shucking ourselves through this inversion. Transhumanism, drug use, Satanism, atheism is the worst kind if you think about it. If you really look at what atheism is doing, it's the exact opposite. It's looking at the face value of life being a fractal and trying to pretend like, no, it all comes from nothing. And so that's one tower, all from nothing. And then the very next sentence, all matter cannot be created or destroyed. That is the law of the universe. So it's like two towers that are totally different from each other that come within a bazillion of a trillionth of a millisecond after each other. And you're supposed to accept that as normal, just like you're supposed to read the Old Testament and the New Testament. And you're supposed to feel it's going to cause that inversion, that same kind of dissonance to happen. It's no different than my ex-wife telling me, James, you're the greatest guy I've ever met in the world. And then the next night, I'm totally butt-fucking my ex-boyfriend behind your back. It's the exact same kind of inversion techniques that this is how I'm not calling my ex-wife psychopath, but man, she's messed up. But the point is that this is how people cause inversion on other people. This is how you break people open. This is why Hollywood will tell you, you're the greatest thing ever. Now we don't want you. It's the constant struggle.
Well, that's why the gaslighting works.
Yes, exactly. It's the
Are you
gaslighting.
guys familiar with binaural beats?
Yeah, I know what they are, but
binaural beats.
I've just tried them a couple times on YouTube, but other than that, no.
You put two headphones in your ears, and there's a different rhythm, a different a different pulse played into each ear, and they combined inside your brain, and they make a third wave, and you can totally manipulate what brain waves. You can make yourself go into an alpha, a theta, a beta, all the different waves. And one time I had a really bad backache. Like, it was killing me for like 2 weeks. Nothing worked. Nothing that I was trying worked. And I went to the chiropractor, and I had like a 10-minute wait. I was there 10 minutes early. And so I put these binaural beats in my ears, and I was listening to it. And I had it set up to go through like a relaxation period, and then it brought me up through through different into like a deeper and deeper trance state, and then back out in like 10 minutes. It was a pretty cool app for my phone. And after that was done, my back was totally like cured. Like, it loosened me up and totally, like, I was fine. Like, I got into my appointment, and I was like, you know what? I listened to this thing on my phone, and my back doesn't hurt anymore. It was totally insane. And I think that's what's going on. I mean, the two towers are definitely creating the third thing they need is us to put that together.
Absolutely. That's that third resonant tone. Like, if you were to pick up your guitar, and not press down on the 12th fret, but just keep your finger over the 12th fret, you'll hear that third octave come in as a result, because you're actually playing two tones at once. That note's able to. Yeah. It's a keynote. If you've got like a room full of people, the first thing you want to do, because it's all sensory perception, it's all mechanical, basically it's all chemical. Most of your thinking is chemically done. So if you want to take over a room, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to sweep it from beta. You need to get rid of all the betas in the room, because they're going to be providing that tone you're talking about that would go against the agreement of everyone in alpha. So it's a two-step process. One, you got to lose the betas. And second, you need to flood it with alphas. And that's why I think I've caught some I'll never be able to prove it. That's what makes it so crazy. But that's why I really think I've caught some people on Twitter that they're licensed, paid assets meant to push a certain agenda. I've only seen it in two categories. I've seen it in vaccines. I can actually prove to you guys, I can show you 3 people that these accounts are paid assets accounts. And I've seen it on QAnon. What really looks like that there were some handbrakes in there, people that were setting the agenda. They're in there now, and they're leading the agenda by sweeping the floor of alphas. They're actually injecting alphas into it. And there's also these beta blockers that are coming in that are trying to eliminate the dissonance that sets their tone better. It's just that simple.
Oh, no, there's no doubt about it. It's people are seeing it more now because it's more obvious now. But I could show you lists going back at least as far as 2006, 2007 of, like, it's a bullet list of how to take over a forum, and it's a drop from intelligence agencies. It's not. That's what it's from. That's it. And if you go study and memorize the key points to one of those lists, then it becomes as obvious as a dog's balls who's doing it. Because there's no other reason they would follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all right in a row, or if this then that,
Right.
Organic conversation and interaction very rarely is going to key onto that pattern. It just doesn't happen organically that way. You see people managing, steering, and encouraging people, and all it is that the internet is new. Social networks aren't new at all. You know, what do you think the Elks Club or the Rotary or the Lions Club or or just the sewing circle in the small town of the women is still a social network. It's one of the most powerful ones. Little old ladies sitting around knitting together, they can run you through the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and get you up out of town real easy. You know.
Yeah, that's why the internet's really their wet dream.
Yeah.
Because we're all heads in jars. We're heads in boxes.
Accelerates the process. They can accelerate the process. This used to take decades.
Yeah.
Now they can get it done in an afternoon.
Yeah. And you're always like, well, how do I get a hold of the kids? And now the kids are there right from the beginning. So,
yeah, they're there more than they are anything else, right?
That's why they're, posting stories of kids that have nightmares about climate change. That shows you just how deep, just how much of a problem this is. But in a lot of ways, we are a dying breed. The three of us talking, the people in the audience, we are a dying breed because we are exposed to, we have the freest internet we're probably ever going to see. We have the freest system that we could possibly imagine if you look at what's coming and how this NWO is going to be built. This is the only exception could be why did they rename the city of Astana? Like, guys, out of all the esoteric stuff that I've looked through, that I've been like, this is a red flag, this is a red flag, this is a red flag. The only anti-red flag I've seen is why did they rename Astana to Sir Sultan? I think is what they called it. Like, why would you change that? That's really weird because Astana. Well, and it's interesting, because the Phoenix, there's a pool at Astana, and before they flooded the pool, I've got a picture of this. Sorry, I should have had it up. But before they flooded the pool, they showed that inside the pool was actually a phoenix, like down below, before they filled it with water.
Then after the two towers and built one in its place, so it's got to be the new world sort of capital, maybe.
It's absolutely the new world capital. I mean, there's no way it could not be. And if you look at the, of course, the whole symbolism of it, it's got two sets of two towers, Jim, not just one. It's kind of weird too. I don't fully understand that part, like why, but it's got two sets of those. And then
in the old world, we had the financial capital, the religious capital, and the commercial capital, right? Rome, London for finance, and New York for commerce. So I wonder what this one is. In the new world, do we need one for all?
It's definitely a one world court. I kind of feel like that's what Clinton is all about, that we'll unlock Clinton. It'll be, it's the biggest scandal ever is what they'll say. And then that will be the excuse to say it's so big that we have to bring these people into a one world court. That's just my guess.
Well, yeah,
that's what I think is going to happen.
That's not a new idea either. I mean, they've been talking about using The Hague as an excuse. Me and Nikki Rapani used to talk about that, how they'll bring out an offense of whatever it is, maybe it's climate change. We can't get China or India under wraps. So we're going to have to haul them to Amsterdam to The Hague because we're going to use the UN as a court. But now they've escalated the actual one world court like you've discussed and we've shown. Like, it looks like they're going to put it in Israel to me. This is going to be even more beyond, what we're...
Isn't Melania from Estonia?
I think so, yeah.
Is she really?
Yeah, that's pretty sure, yeah.
I don't remember for sure. Maybe we need to look. But...
No, I'm sure you're right. That wasn't me saying I doubt it, by the way. I never looked really.
I was just looking at pictures of this city.
This is a good picture too. I'm going to send you right now that it shows you the difference over 5 years. And keep in mind, guys, that the migrant caravan that started in Honduras, which really benefited Trump and his wall, that is a living snake that rose up from Central America and climbed its way up through Quetzalcoatl, the city of the serpent that has the snake in its mouth. This is a city, Quetzalcoatl was a bird came and landed on a rock and it had a serpent in its mouth. And they said, this is our home. Can you pull that picture up, SB? It's in our chat again.
Yeah, I'm popping it over there right now. So here we go.
And so you already have this continuous thing of this serpent rising, this phoenix, as Jim was saying, that's coming up. And then if you look at Astana, tell me when that is up.
It's up there now.
I might be wrong about that. I think she's from Slovakia.
Here's Astana in 2013 at the top, and you see that there's a snake, right? It's like really apparent. That's obviously a snake. It starts at the feet. This is creepy, guys. That this is so big, and the media just doesn't even talk about it. It just shows you how everything is just bullshit. No one's telling us anything. But then you look 5 years later, and now it's full of water, and it's the complete phoenix. It's actually not complete. It's even more full now. The entire tail is now watered now. In this picture, you only see like the bird inside of it right now.
So the dark area is all water, you're saying, James?
Yeah, that dark area that you see is all water.
And they're filling up the tail feathers that are all the way back now, too, you're saying?
Yep. And those tail feathers are now filled. And that serpent has now been flooded. And
it looks like it's trying to get a worm or something at the front, or it's got a lightning bolt coming off of its beak.
Yeah, there's although it looks like that even could be a tone that's being played, like it's calling.
Yeah.
And I say that because I'm going to send you this other picture. I say that because if you look at this picture, you see where the phoenix is heading. The phoenix is heading. Now, it's one thing to keep in mind the ratio of this pyramid. This is exactly the same shape as the dollar bill pyramid, as the Eye of Providence. There you go, SB. All right, there you go. So this phoenix is rising. First, there's a flood. It flooded the snake.
Now you can see the water. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And now this phoenix is now heading right into the pyramid, the New World Order pyramid right there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a far out picture. Let's go visit.
Yeah. I'd love to go there just to get a feel of the energy, and just look around and I would go there in a heartbeat just because it you would learn a lot from it to figure out what's going on. And there's all these people out in the world that just know this is how it works, and there's so many of us just don't know. We're not allowed to know. That's again part of this inversion of, not inversion, but it hit me 2 weeks ago that, man, government is a secret society. So is mafia. Mafia has this omerta concept, which is you never tell on your fellow Mafians. That's a secret society. You've created, through omerta, you've created a secret society. Well, government has the same thing. The secret society is called, a secret rating. Well, he's got a classified rating, so he's not allowed to esoterically divulge the gnosis of anything classified. And then above that, you have a secret rating. He's not allowed to divulge things that are secret. And then you have a top secret. So you have that same chain of command. You have the same secret societies. And what the illusion is that there's a bunch of people that are walking around thinking that government was good. It's just broken. Like, that's the illusion. The illusion is thinking that government's just broken right now. When, no, the government's working perfectly. This is exactly how it was designed to work. And that's why it's so insane to watch each of us, push to give them more power, pushing again and again to, no, we need to give them health care. We need to do all this stuff.
Everyone consents to, well, most people I know anyway, can't really handle the idea of true freedom is just a terrifying prospect.
Yes.
Like it's danger. You're just in pure danger. Like you don't have anyone to ask for anything or rely on anything, and most people don't. They can't even fathom it, let alone imagine having it. And I think people that really do desire it are rare. And so it's no surprise to me when people beg for more support, quote unquote. They think it's support when it very rarely is. There is charitable acts that can help people, but for the most part, if you get you know, if you give me an extra $100 a month right now consistently and don't stop, I'm gonna get real lazy on what I'm doing with that $100, and then when it's gone, I'm gonna be suffering, you know, and that's that people don't think that way, and that's the way I see all of the things that you see the chitter chatter about. I look at almost all of it that way. It's like you don't want more. You want to suffer enough to figure it out for yourself. That's really the best thing you can do, is to suffer and figure it out for yourself. And especially with things like guns, I know that's they say all the stuff about guns with these alleged shootings that have happened recently and everything, and I can't fathom a world where only people who are already super empowered have guns and no one else does. That just seems like a terrible idea to me, regardless of whether or not I don't currently own a gun right now. You know, I've never been big on owning, and you know, it's a huge responsibility to have guns. You have to work with them all the time if you're going to own them. So if I was going to own guns, then I'd have to put it on my schedule to constantly be handling and shooting and practicing with guns, you know. But it doesn't change my perspective that I don't think that we should remove them by any means, because it seems very obvious to me that it just empowers people. You're just giving more to those who already have and trusting them. Well, I don't see any good reason to trust people, especially people who are already empowered.
I see so many reasons not to trust.
Yeah,
like, you know, there's so many, but we're not able to say them because, again, we keep thinking the government is supposed to be good. It just happens to be broken right now. That really is the giant illusion that's fooling us the most, is that we want to believe that. We want to believe in the sanctity of badges and brass. You know, we want to believe that if you have a badge, that means you're going to be good.
Forever, James. They've been telling us this story. I read a book called The Recent History of the United States of America, and it was published in 1927. And the only thing I can really say that made me happy to read that book was that nothing had changed, and so in a way I felt relieved. The politicians were being shaken out of office for being drug addicts and homosexuals and alcoholics and philanderers. They were bribing people at the ballot box, a fistful of dollars for a fistful of ballots, and on and on. None of the minutia of what we see as problems today had changed at all, you know. If anything, it's a little faster now because of our technology. So it's the same lie. This is the same lie they keep using, and it still works. It still works fine for most people. We just got to get Trump out of there, James. What are you talking about? And trust the plan. Exactly. If you think Trump's supposed to be in, then just trust the plan and get him back in there in 2020. And then there's a few of us out here like, nah, bro, none of that's working. What we need is a water supply and a food forest, and everyone leave us the fuck alone. That's what we need.
Yeah, I think the best way we're going to be able to win this is we got to find a way to never use money. Like, you know, to use their money, I should say, because money itself is great. The currency's great. It's just theirs. We can't use theirs. That's what's going to screw us up.
I'll give you guys something to remember. There's a friend, another guy named James I really like, and he said that that's the secret key, is to get completely out of the money system, and that because it says right in the word innocent, you need to be in no cent. In no cent. You got to be not one penny in their system. In no cent.
Oh, gotcha.
You know, and
that's brilliant.
That's James Freed said that, and I've always agreed with that sentiment. You know, I'm usually not an idealist, but I do agree that to be completely out, if we can get away from this monetary system, it'll just kind of collapse under its own weight.
Oh, and yeah. James Freed has unlocked some of the secrets of language and some of the enslavement that the language has brought us.
Yeah. I'll send you some links.
The secret roots of words tell you what it is that they really mean.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot to that. Yeah, so much of that's really is the root of all spellcraft. I mean, I can possess you right now. In fact, people get really mad. Like, for example, if someone's eating dinner, you can ruin someone's dinner by saying a 4-letter word, and it will completely destroy what they were trying to do before that happened. That's how powerful possession is. And you don't have to like that person. You could have never even met that person in your entire life, but they can come up to you in the food court and say one word, and your lunch is just ruined.
You could describe sucking on a lemon and the seeds and the sourness, bitter face that you made when you put it in your mouth, and it just gets into somebody else's head. All of a sudden, they have a lemon in their mouth.
That's why they teach us spelling. They need the asynchronous possession built into us. If you think about it, when we were sending our kids to school, when we were going to school, really they were drilling a hole into our head and establishing scaffolding and setting up a dopamine system of reward for quick responses through pop quizzes, through hour-long tests. We were conditioned for victory, not for wisdom. I think if anything is ultimately happening right now, it's that we've turned a quest for wisdom into the quest for victory. That's why you see Athena, the statue of Athena, with Nike in her hand. Nike is down here, and he's reaching up to crown Athena with victory. Athena was the goddess of wisdom, but Nike is now there distracting her, telling her, no, let me reward you with the laurels of victory. It's changing the aspect of why she's there from wisdom into victory. And if you think about what cannibalism really is, when I say cannibalism, I'm talking about Wetiko, this Native American term of moral cannibalism, where what we're doing to ourselves right now, really that's a side effect of our quest for victory instead of wisdom. It's a competitive sport versus, say, a graceful sport. It's the difference between figure skating versus hockey. It's two totally different flow states that are involved. One's about being graceful, the other's about winning. I'm not saying that victory is always bad, because it's a very important tool, but we're replacing wisdom. We're replacing the people we hold up at the top are not the ones with wisdom. They're the ones that are willing to do whatever it takes to win. They're the ones that are willing to even say screw reason, even lie. Whatever it takes to win is what's going to be valued, because they're the ones that wanted the victory the most. I put up another graphic. Do you see that, SB? It's a map of the United States.
Let me jump back over there. Yeah,
it's a little bit off topic, but I think it's important that none of us, we don't talk about enough just how prevalent mafia is, just how prevalent crime is. Like, in fact, it's not even accurate to say mafia, because we seem to think, oh, well, that's probably in Philadelphia or New York or whatever. And mafia is scaffolding. It's everywhere. And I put a graphic. These are all the cities where the most organized crime has been found. And it just shows you just how important this is. Now, these aren't accidents. During Prohibition, before Prohibition started, there was no mafia. 12 years later, you had 5 really big mafias. You had New Orleans, you had Tampa, you had New York, and you had Chicago. And I think I want to say Boston was in there too, one of the earliest mafias. Those were birthed by Prohibition. It wasn't an accident. Two organizations grew from Prohibition. 2 of them, Mafia and Government. They both grew huge thanks to Prohibition. And then what happens later is 12 years later, after you lift Prohibition, don't imagine, but if you choke somebody, the second you let go of their neck, you know exactly what the first thing they're going to do is. Like, no matter who they are, the very first thing they're going to do is take a breath. They want oxygen. And I think that's what Prohibition was about. This was a master alchemist spell of, let's cut off alcohol. We want to possess the country with alcohol, with the demon alcohol. To do that, we're going to constrict it first. We're going to cause the lungs to want to breathe. We're going to prohibit it. We're going to start Prohibition. That kicks off organized crime. It kicks off the federal government trying to manage the organized crime. And then once it's lifted, now you have everyone trying alcohol when it didn't used to be something that was so popular. Look at, where did the cocktail originate? It originated during Prohibition.
Right.
All of these things happen as a result of what it is we're trying to fight.
They
It's
did
the same thing.
They did the same thing with hallucinogens. With Timothy Leary actually went and insisted that they make LSD illegal, so that he could create the desire for people to have it, because the prohibition, even if you don't make it legal again, which they are kind of creeping towards that now with mushrooms anyway, you know. But even if you don't, you create the desire for people to have it. You know, I remember being in high school talking to a lady who was from some northern European country in, boy, was it Amsterdam? I think it was somewhere else, but it might have been Amsterdam. And marijuana was legal, and she said that none of the teenagers gave a damn to get stoned because it wasn't prohibited. So there was no desire for it, you know. And so, of course, then, like, we're seeing it now in Washington State. You can't go to the checkout counter without the cashier being stoned because it's illegal for our whole lives. And now it's legal, and so people don't care. They just go blow a joint on break or before they come to work, or they eat some edibles, and they're trying to count your change back, and they can't even think, man. You know, they.
Well, that's why I think ayahuasca was allowed to be pushed, honestly, because of that. And I'm not trying to say that ayahuasca is bad, guys. I'm not trying to say mushrooms is bad. I'm not trying to say marijuana is bad. In fact, these are allies. These are actually living entities that we can have a conversation about. What I'm trying to say, though, is that if you're trying to subdue a populace, you're going to use narcotics to do that. You're going to find different ways. And ayahuasca definitely pushes that same inversion technique of there's a secret inside you. You have to go inside to find it. It's going to suck, but you really need it. It's the secret to you feeling better. And if you look at maybe why they're legalizing marijuana now, it could be to subdue us, to just accept what's already happening right now. 28 states, you can't boycott Israel, you know. First Amendment being lost, new gun laws coming. All these things would go over well if everyone was stoned, if everyone was out looking for this missing Gnostic piece, you know, inside them. It's really sad because I get hit all the time from people that are like, dude, you're into magic. I want to be in magic too. I've been doing mushrooms. And I'm just like, you don't get it, man. I freaking work as hard as I can to try and be clean so I can do magic. Like, you know, my most powerful moments are when I'm in flow state and I'm writing. I sometimes things come out of me that I'm like, where the hell did that come from? I don't know, but keep going. And the only way I can keep that going is I have to be fully calorically burning willpower. Like, I have to be in the engine room, like sweat all over me, like freaking going. I can't go in there with ayahuasca. I can't go in there with LSD. None of that's going to happen. This whole rumor of Hunter S. Thompson, like actually writing in these fucked up states, I don't think is true at all.
No. And the you know, I've done plenty of drugs, and hallucinogens especially was the only real hard drug I ever cared for back in the day. But I'm disenchanted by all of it and really don't recommend it to anybody. And I will talk young people who are talking about dropping LSD or especially ayahuasca, what's the other, salvia divinorum, DMT, these things I think is a bad idea. And I'm not saying that what you said is true. You're breaking through the veil right into a spirit realm, and it's a place that I would say most people aren't supposed to be. And if you are supposed to be there, well, then you know you're supposed to be there because you've gone through a process of either initiation or self-initiation to get there. But I discourage people most of the time. Like, I've talked young people more than once out of, like, just don't do it. And tell them why, you know, like, you don't, you know, and like, I know people dig on Carlos Castaneda and that kind of stuff, but his whole background and his whole history is questionable as hell. If you look into it, it's all just as questionable as these shootings, you know?
Well, and what's going to happen is just like Jim found that dollar bill with the serial number 12345432241, that's going to have a better chance of surviving, you know, longer through the years. The exact same thing happens with truth. That's why Carlos Castaneda can come out and tell you about the assemblage point. It's lasting longer because he found truth. So even though maybe his other stuff's suspect, maybe he is, it's the gems that last the longest, that hit the most people, that probably, I say probably, because it could be a possessionary kind of thing if you're codependent, but probably is where truth is. And that's what makes it last longer. It's very similar to this silver, if you think about it. This silver is going to last in my life a lot longer than plastic, a lot longer than a rock would. Like here's a 3D print, right? So this shape, I guarantee you in 4 years, I'm probably going to know where this one is, and I'm probably not going to be sure about where this one is, right?
Right.
Now this is a pretty pleasing shape, ooh, it's eight-sided.
Well, send it to us, and we'll make it into silver too.
Say what?
I said send it to us, and we'll make that one into silver too.
It doesn't have the same essence to it, and that's part of what this prana economy that's happening underneath, that I think we're missing so much of how all this works, because we're constantly told that no, that the shape is fine. Whatever the shape of, as long as it looks like it, it's fine. That's why I personally get kind of mad at facades on buildings. It's like, dude, if you're going to do the rock work, freaking put some rocks in there. Don't just like take the concrete blocks and then make it look like you put rocks in there.
Yeah.
Like, make it out of rocks. Make its essence honest. Make it vibrate an honest vibration, through the whole thing. We don't have enough of that right now. I almost call that a style, because it's so rare that you see it. But you'll find these authentic people that are like, no, I really want this to be authentic, like all the way through. And so that's why, yes, it'd be easier to do this. I'd rather this be done this way with real rock, because I want that to be real. I find that very attractive, to be around real things.
Right.
Because I'm surrounded by people that are pretending like all the time. Even the people that are super nice to you. It's like, I really don't like those people, because it's just like, can't you just be in a shitty mood once? Like, do you have any idea how much I would bond with you today if you were just in a shitty mood and just showed it to me? It's not that I'm encouraging shitty mood, but you know what I'm saying. There's this authenticity, this essence of real that really does show you, because we're losing it everywhere. You really do start to see where the magic really is. I hope we can gain that back.
Well, yeah, I don't think we've lost it. I think a lot of it's just an illusion of them they're trying to kind of allow people to forget that it ever existed. But there's a bunch of us out here ringing the bell saying, well, don't forget what buildings without facades look like. I'm always happy when they pull the facade off of a building and rework the front of it so that it looks like it did. That there's nothing there except for the bricks and maybe an old sign that's advertising some company that's out of business, That's
yeah.
But yeah, this has been a good talk, man. It's getting to be about 10 o'clock, and I got to hit the bathroom again. You guys want to keep going? I'm okay to keep going, but I got to run back to the restroom one more time if that's the case.
I need to go to bed because it's 1.
Yeah, that's why I figured it's getting late over there. That's why I wanted to give you an opportunity.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Away,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
This is a great talk. I really appreciate it, man. We covered almost all the points we had here that we talked about before the show. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't gone and bought a copy of James' book, The Blueprints of Mind Control, it's well worth the purchase. If you buy it from him directly, he'll sign a copy and send it to you. You can find him. The link is still in the description. It's jtrue.com, right, James?
That's right. Yeah, www.jtrue.com. I'd love to send you guys a signed copy. Also, I have some good news. I got invited to do a presentation on the main stage at Acapulco.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations, that's cool. Because that's Mark Bassio's deal, right? Or not, he's not running it, but he's well known for being there, right?
Yeah, he's definitely been there for sure. I don't know if he's going this year because they haven't announced all the speakers yet, but Jeff happened to leak that I was a speaker, so I'm able to tell people right now. But I just want to tell a really quick story. Last summer, I bought this coin. I was so broke. I didn't have money for this coin, but my friend told me you need to buy this coin. And once I got it, I started to alchemically think about it. At Acapulco, it just by pure luck, I'm going there exactly 1 year after I published my book.
Nice.
And it's just really cool how the alchemy of, when I bought this, I divested from the system as a computer programmer. and I poured all my heart and soul into my books. And I released 2 books last year. One was like, 15 years of writing that was already kind of done. That was Spell 6 Dragons. But then Blueprints of Mind Control started. And a year later, I'm going to be at Acapulco giving a presentation about that book. And hopefully with another book. And I'm just trying to say, I'm not trying to be a show off. I'm trying to say that this stuff works, man.
No, it does work, and we're proud of you, man. We want you to know that you should be proud, and it's okay to show off because you busted your ass to get here.
If you put your essence into this stuff, if you put your essence into it, you're going to get that out. As long as you don't shame yourself. Don't flog your ego in public ever. Don't do it. That's your source of morality. That's what makes you get up and leave the room if you're in a shitty conversation. That's what makes you quit a job that you just don't belong to anymore. Don't shame the ego. It's going to make you more powerful. And think about things like this, these little essence tricks that you could look for, those 4-leaf clovers of prana and tap into them, because it will jack your belief. And man, your belief is the most powerful currency that exists. I know I've already said that, but I don't want you guys to hear me as being negative tonight. There's a lot of power here. We can get all this back.
Hey,
That's all I got.
Cool. I want to put an idea out into the world on the alchemical tip there that as time moves forward, because we went a whole episode here without talking about Tracy, but none of us have stopped thinking about her. And she might even be right here with us. But I want to put the idea to make silver coins of her badge, of that There's More Beyond badge. I want everyone to put that in your head. Put that in your head and put it in our hearts, and maybe we can make that a reality. Maybe we all put enough money together and have the coin, the silver coin manufacturers mint us our own sacred currency of Tracy's Mount Analog There's More Beyond badge. And so
it could be a great fundraiser, a fundraiser trust sort of deal.
Yeah, because we're still going to get more information for people that are waiting or wondering. Things are just going on behind the scenes that we can't address nothing yet. But eventually we're going to be able to do something. But I just wanted to put that out there because it just popped into my head about an hour ago, and I don't want to forget. I love the idea of having, the weight of that silver coin be something that means that much to all of us, because it underpins us. It's something else. There's more beyond. There's more beyond wherever we are now. The hopeless feeling that we keep running into when we have these conversations, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Maybe we end up in pure hopelessness, but maybe not. Maybe there's more beyond this that's not hopeless, that's greater than we ever imagined, And that's my hope. I'm not giving up on that hope that we get something good from this world, from this lifetime still. So.
Well said, man. You're here. I love that idea of the badge too.
Cool. Well, we'll hit you up, James. I don't want to try and stick you 3 weeks in a row, but we'll have some conversations and get you back on here sometime soon. Folks, go sign up for James' email list too. Get on his email list. That way when he publishes a new article on his website. If you're not following him on Twitter, but it's better to be on the list anyway, because then you get an email. So.
That's right. Let me spam you. It's always good stuff, though. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
We'll talk
all
to you
right.
later.
Thanks, James.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, James.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. I think I'm gonna go ahead and click the button, Jim. I love you, brother. I'll see you in the morning.
You
Folks,
too. I'll see you later.
I gotta run back to the bathroom. So 1, 2, 3. Okay,
Okay,
bye.
bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, bye.
Okay,
Okay,
bye.